Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to the Transatlantic Call-In Show here on the line. You are live with Jack and Josie. How are you doing today, Jack?
I'm doing great. I'm caffeinated. I made like a little breakfast burrito. I'm ready to go. I'm fueled up.
Yeah.
I'm
Wow.
energized. How about
Energized with the
you?
breakfast burrito. Good for you.
Yeah.
I'm doing all right, getting back to that workload and, just slowly getting back into everything in life. But it's been good, it's hard. Like I think I said it on the last show. It's like I was going so fast for so long, and then like everything now just feels like I'm just frozen. So it's kind of like I'm like, all right, all right. But no, things are good. I mean, the things that I'm working on right now is helping a lot of trans candidates get elected. Right now we have about 16 candidates that I am watching in my organization right now
That's
that
incredible.
are actually going into November, right?
Hmm.
So it may be up to 20 soon, which is really really exciting. And like it's really really great. Like I mean, 35 actually got our endorsement, and then but now we have about 20 going into November. So it's like that's really cool. It's even though we've had like this historically bad year for trans people nationally and state across states as well, we still may have like the most historic year of trans candidates winning elections across the country. State assemblies in Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia, Ohio, Washington State, Florida.
Yeah.
We're gonna get somebody in Florida, first trans person ever elected to any office. Like it's wild how well we're actually doing in these places.
I
So
mean, it our community's really resilient. We're rising to meet the moment, and like this kind of pushback is I think it helps not just like, obviously adults who feel dispirited, but especially like trans kids.
yeah.
Like seeing that like yeah, things suck, but you can in fact still do things.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's inspiring. It's inspiring. Even though I didn't make it by 1%, it's still really great to see how many people are going through. It's really, really good.
Yeah.
Maryland one day will have a representative. Well, there is a person who is running in the Maryland state house that she could very well win. It's a long shot because it's a very Republican area in the state of
Mhm.
Maryland right there where she's running, but she could very well be the first Maryland state delegate, which is something too. So
That's
that's really, really
awesome.
cool. Yeah. Anyways, talking about the politics. Yeah. So let's go ahead and get started with what our last week's poll was. All right. Does forcing trans men into women's restrooms make anyone safer? Of course, 96% said no, and 4% said yes. And if you are part of that 4%, make sure you call in.
Yeah.
We have open lines right now, so make sure you call in when you have the opportunity. Do you have any words for this?
I mean, like I want to genuinely hear the argument for yes, largely because to me it looks like a no-win situation. Like it's a classic like damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, and like I don't know who even conceptually is made safer by, you know, I- by this. Like it just seems like a bad idea all around.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like it doesn't make anybody safer, but there are bigots that are like more comfortable, you know?
I
They're
mean,
they're more
are they though? Because then, like the bigots then see like like
yeah,
the bigoted men see trans women in their bathrooms, and like trans women make bigots uncomfortable. Like
yeah,
you're actively facilitating more discomfort for yourself as a bigot.
of course, because then you're just gonna bigots are gonna bigot. And if there's nothing to be bigoted against, they'll just start making shit up, and that's just how it goes. It's
Yeah,
it's so frustrating. And let's go ahead and sneak peek of what this week's poll is.
sneak peek.
And I believe our producer is doing screening calls at the same time as
It's all
doing
right.
the
We can vamp
production.
for a moment.
And
But
just the
like
vamp.
it also doesn't make like there's no way it makes sense. Like if you have a trans man in the women's restroom, people are gonna be like, what's a man doing in the women's restroom? Like it's just it's a no-win situation
It's
for
a
trans
no-win.
people.
Yeah. So here's one that you came up with, Jack, is cutting off parents sometimes the answer for trans people. Yes, no. And we will get more into that. Again, if you want to call in, you can call in at 720-619-2288. And if you are overseas, you can click the link in the description for the web caller, but do that only if you're overseas, and from the United States, and or not in the United States, because I guess people from Mexico and Canada call too. And then make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't done that yet. What are you doing? Go ahead and do that. It helps the algorithm, puts this feed more in people's faces, as more people will most likely call to be able to get more of those fun conversations. And at the end of the show, we do super chats. And for $5 or more, we read them at the end of the show. And here on TACIS, we have a fun little competition between the host on the show, where the person with the most hashtag Team Josie or Team Jack at this point, I would make sure you have to have a hashtag or it won't count, will be able to give points, and the loser of that competition has to defend a silly topic. I had to defend on the last show that all cats are transphobic, and we had to declare that Lux's cat is indeed transphobic. But
Incredible.
it was a fun time. It was a fun time. That's what Lux gets for winning the competition. It's like, it didn't have to happen that way, but that's what happened.
It's true.
It's true.
Um, Now I am interested. Do you have any particular calls you're interested in taking today, Josie?
Let me see, because my app is not showing where the calls are. So let me just jump in here. Oh, I mean, there's no. Okay, I
Yeah.
was just making sure there wasn't a glitch on my side. Honestly, go ahead. I'm free with people who are question our existence, people who are don't believe trans people should participate in sports, believe that trans people don't deserve health care at any age. And also, if you are a MAGA supporter that thinks Trump's doing a great job, you can always call about that too. I'm always having fun about that. What
Yeah.
about you?
I want to hear from the drunkles. I want to hear from like the Thanksgiving uncles who are loud and constantly in my DMs asking for various favors that I ignore. I want to hear from these like transphobes who like I constantly see in the chat, and every single time I stream, I see them in my chat. And I just want, like, this is the opportunity. This is the opportunity to show that trans medicine is delusion. This is your chance to prove in front of an audience that, you trans people don't exist and that we're actively delusional. Like, this is your opportunity.
Yeah.
We're doing hit me. Like, come on. Where are your arguments? I see the keyboard warriors, and
Oh
yet
yeah.
the keyboard warriors they evaporate whenever they're given the floor to actually give a little bit of a speech.
Oh
It's
yeah.
weird. I just and cowardly.
And
And
very cowardly.
honestly, where are the transphobes out there who are going to seek to redeem the soiled name of hating trans people?
I know. It's just bonkers because like it's interesting because a lot of these conservatives think that we talk about transness too much. But in
Hmm.
reality, it's the conservatives that continue to talk about us over and over and over, you know. And you know, it's never a surprise when people like Lindsey Graham, when they die, all of a sudden these trans, you know, sex workers come out and they're like, "Oh yeah, that guy, let me tell you some stories." And it's just like, "Yes, please let us know."
Look, I see right now there's somebody in chat calling us delusional, and I'm just like, this is your opportunity to call in and,
Yeah.
put your money where your mouth is. You talk big
Yeah.
when all you got to do is type on some keys. Why not
Oh
say it
yeah.
to our faces? Wouldn't that be
Yeah.
more satisfying to you? Wouldn't it
Yeah,
be
I
more
would love to know.
satisfying to use an argument to put us in our place? You
Yeah.
can't, though.
You can't. You can't. And you know, honestly, your comment is hidden to the whole world. So only us, only we can read it over here. So
Yeah.
so to call us and tell us why we are not women. Like just let us know. Like, you know, tell us why you are the arbiter of what womanhood is and isn't.
Yeah.
We'd love to know why that's the case.
Nice
Um,
ideology. Did J.K. Rowling give it to you?
You know, somebody I think it was what's the podcaster that's the of the fruity podcast or a little bit fruity podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was saying that I think this is the what they were saying that J.K. Rowling is essentially the Elon Musk of the UK.
I mean,
And
yeah.
it's like it's that is like such a good framing because that makes so much sense. That's who she's become because she like has like a legal fund. So like if you are a transphobe and you want to commit like you want to, you know, sue trans people, like she'll pay for it for you. Like it's bonkers. It's bonkers.
Yeah.
Um
There
yeah.
was there was just some data released today that shows Elon Musk putting up J.K. Rowling as like a highlighted algorithmically pushed creator on Twitter, has basically made her the nexus for transphobia just overall online, and it's pretty insane.
Yeah, yeah. It is. It looks like we have someone in the queue here. Let's go ahead
Yeah.
and take Miriam from Norway. You are on the line with Jack and Josie. You want to talk about the word gender and how it's inaccurate and confusing. So let us hear about it. What do you think?
Hi, thanks for having me. So I, yeah, so sorry. If I end up too rambly, just let me know. But I feel like a lot of the times when we talk about like gender discussions, and especially like when it relates to trans people, I often think that the gender discussion itself might not even be helpful. And I think we often conflate, or at least in my opinion, we conflate gender with your identity, which I think should be separate in these discussions, if that makes sense.
Um,
Hmm.
so are you trying to say so when you know we look at gender as more than just your identity. You also have gender expression as well. So like gender is like the identity that someone holds, but there is different ways people can express their gender. Be it be masculine, be it be feminine, be it you know, non-binary, anything or in or around the idea of how that is expressed. And then you know, you have your sex, which is, you know, what you were born with, and biologically speaking. Then you have sexual orientation, like who you love and who you want to be romantic with. And then also, in my opinion, relationship configuration, meaning how many people you want to love, either none or any, or as many as you want. So monogamy, polyamory, ace. So those are kind of like the things that kind of help us map like the person's like identity and who they are, and none of those things have to be related to each other. Sometimes they are. Some people relate sex and their gender, and therefore we call them cis. And some people who have sex that were assigned, like for myself, I'm assigned male at birth. However, I am my gender identity is a woman, so therefore I am a trans woman, but I am a woman because that's my gender, even though my sex assigned at birth is male. So that's why we have all of these words to help describe a person's identity more descriptively.
I hear you, but I just think that so the way you described it, like your identity, like you mentioned that you were assigned male at birth, but then your identity is like that of a woman, and I think that is different than gender. Like okay, um, sorry, I can try to build up from maybe common ground. Like I agree with you about like sex. I think sex is like a combination of physical biological traits that encompass who you are, and that is it's not one thing over the other. It's a combination of all of these things, and include like included in these things, I think, is um like you sorry, one of the things that keeps being mentioned is that people are born trans, they don't turn trans, right? Like, so that's something that you're born with. It's not a social construct. Gender is a social construct, and you mentioned multiple times that when you meet someone, you interact with their gender, and I agree with that. But then you're not interacting with how they think, what their identities are. So I feel like these are two different things. Like someone's gender is what you interact with, like
Yeah,
socially, what they
but like
feel
that's
like
the
on the
gender
inside.
that's gender
Sure.
expression. You interact with somebody's gender expression, whereas their internal identity is gender identity. That's the gender they identify as, right? And when we're talking about the gender someone identifies as or identifies with, we're talking about, a set of like socially constructed ideas about the different gendered groups we have in society. But you can look around the world and see that there are different groups of different societies group different ideas of gender identity differently. You have societies that have a recognized and a commonly accepted third gender, even like India, what the most populous country on the planet, has a third gender. Um, and so when somebody identifies as gender, they are making an appeal to explain their identity to other people in a way that makes sense. And that commonly understood schema is gender.
Um, so my issue with that is that if if you were born in a different era, in a different time, or a different society, different like location, would you end up with a different identity than what you are? Like, would you not be a woman in that society or that era?
I
Because
mean,
I
I
think that people's identity are independent of the gender social construct. Like, I feel like no matter where you are born or when you are born, like you could be in like a man born in like late eras with like wigs and like powder faces or whatever, and then you could be born a man here. You would still be a man. You would just express it depending on the social construct. But your identity is something you're born with,
but
and
do you think that
I feel
being
like
a
that's
like
something.
do you think that being like identifying as a man and the idea of man is the same in different societies at different times?
No, but that's my point. That's gender. They're not the
Yeah.
same. But
It
your
but that's what we
inner
mean when we're talking about
identity
it
is.
being but that's what we mean when we're talking about gender, like it's as a social construct. And so when we're talking about identity, it's using the shared schema, as flawed as it might be, to try and explain what our identity is to other people, right? And so if you were in a different situation or with a different schema of what it means to be different genders, maybe some people would identify differently. Um, but we have the situation we have, and like there are going to be some people who are like, no matter what, I would identify as a woman in any society. But then there are going to be some people who are like, because it's a spectrum of identity, who would be like, maybe I would identify as a different kind of gender in this circumstance as opposed to this circumstance. But I think it depends. And so when we're talking about gender identity, we're talking about something that's squishier and less well defined than people might like. But that's kind of the nature of language and the nature of expressing ourselves, and trying to convey ourselves. Like it's um, kind of like I know that this is a little bit of maybe a seeming tangent, but like my background is in literature, and I frequently encountered a lot of different interpretations of the same text, if that makes sense. But there are going to
Mm-hmm.
be some people who identify with different interpretations. Um, and like that's okay, but they're trying to convey something to you with their interpretation, as well as what is the author trying to convey, because what an author might have been trying to convey in Don Quixote, in Cervantes' original text, it might be lost to someone reading it today who isn't aware of like the courtly intrigue being discussed. And so like it is a nebulous and shifting thing, and that's why you also have societies that have these shifting concepts of gender.
I mean, okay, let me maybe take a different path. The way the reason I'm kind of saying that this sometimes, at least in my opinion, kind of maybe muddies the discussion a bit, is that I don't feel like we even need to talk about gender when we're talking about trans people, because I think like the famous um, case where like a guy was born and had like a botched surgery and then was like given surgery and hormones and lived as a woman for a while and then experienced gender dysphoria. Like he was a cis male born in that body, and his brain chemistry is also like matching his body. And so like that's all biological. Where like if when a trans person is like born, their body does not match the brain chemistry. All of that is physical, all of that is biological. It has nothing to do with gender identity or social construct or anything like that. Like the outcome would be to eventually express yourself in the way that society does, but you're like being transgender has nothing to do with gender. And
It has
But
everything to
when
when
do
you
with
were
gender.
yeah, it's in the word.
Yeah, transgender. It's like everything has to do with it. And on the John Money thing, which you were talking about, proves that gender does exist because it wasn't the fact that this person had, female hormones, injected into them without them understanding and all of this type of stuff. It was the fact that they were forced to live as a woman. That's what you just said. That's what ultimately led to that person taking their own life. That's how serious it was. And that was a person, like you said, was a cis man who was forced to transition due to the stupid experiment of a very bad man that made that person live a life of torture and horror to the point of them actually taking their own life. And it was had nothing to do with their body. It had everything to do with them living as a woman and being forced to do so. And so it like just because trans people do have gender affirming care because of their different levels of gender dysphoria doesn't make it not related to gender.
Yeah.
If I sat here and like got all the stuff that I have done with my gender affirming care but still identified as a man, that would be very interesting, right?
Hmm.
That would be that. I'm saying not some people do it. I'm not saying that I'm not going to yuck anybody's yum. Like if that's who you are, then go for it. But the idea for me, it's about the identity of woman, and it's my gender dysphoria that, especially when it comes to my, being perceived in society and being a part of the group of women is part of the need for me to be able to alleviate that gender dysphoria. So to answer your previous question, if I was lived in a different era of time and like men wore powdered wigs and put on makeup and wore high heels, I would still be doing what the women in that era would still be doing because I am living inside of the social construct. I did not create it. So because I'm in the social construct, I will do with what my, people, which are women as far as I identify with, are doing in society. That includes gender roles, that includes all of these different things because I am a binary trans woman. That's who I am. I am a person that is, has a very strong gender identity of woman.
And I
Perfect.
would just also point out that when we're talking about engaging with the social construct and, it being a real thing, like you can look at the data on trans kids, for example, like the level of reassurance from parents and the effect that has on suicidality, the level of acceptance people have, regardless of their current biological configuration or level of health care. Like that social acceptance is key. And that's the acceptance of one's professed gender identity.
I fully agree with that. I'm not, if maybe my phrasing wasn't the best when I said like it doesn't relate to it, but as you said, like it wouldn't matter which era you lived in, you would still grow up having the identity of a woman in either scenario. And for kids, being accepted in their gender identity is very euphoric. It's like I am accepted for who I am, but who you are is something that you are born with. This is something that like
It's part of it.
Yeah.
It's part of
it's
it.
But
It's
like,
not all of it. It's part.
yeah, we're
Like,
kind of getting into like a nature versus nurture argument, and the reality is it's neither wholly one nor the other. It's both.
yeah. I am a trans person. That's who I am. I am a trans woman, and I did nothing different. I am still the same human being. I did not put my brain in a different body. I am still the mass and biological matter that came out of my mother's womb. Like that is the person that I am. Like yes, that is true, but the social construction, because humans are social creatures, social constructions are very, very normal, even in the animal kingdom. Like we all understand that when you look at societal creatures, they create either tribal systems, they come up with hierarchies. Like even deer, red-tailed deer vote to figure out who goes to the watering hole and what time to do it. Like these are things that are very, very interesting to like understand. Social construction is as natural as the gametes that you're born with.
yes. So of course you're gonna seek social validation and be part of the like we are social creatures, so obviously you're gonna be want to participate in that society. Um, but I I kind of disagree when you said that you are biologically the same. You're very different. I mean, I assume that, like, having been on HRT for so long, I would say that your body is now more female than male. You have actually changed your biology. So, like, if you haven't started this,
Sure. But I'm not, but the thing is, I'm using the premise of what you said is like it's something you are born with. And so therefore, whatever I take as medical care doesn't change who I am and what I was born. Like just because I am taking medication doesn't change the fact that I am a biological creature that exists. That's like the idea of like does somebody with a heart transplant, are they no longer biologically the same? Like it just kind of becomes a very interesting conversation of, philosophically of like this like if that was the case, then a baby that is born only a couple days later, they are already building new cells that weren't there before. So I mean, we're all biologically different by that logic. Like within a couple days of birth, we're all biologically different from where we came from.
no, I mean, of course, we grow up, like things change and everything, but like I mean, what you have gone through, like the journey that you took, did change your biology to kind of be like your sex has changed basically. Like you are mostly female at this point,
Yeah, like
and
there are biological changes that happen on HRT for sure, but that's a change that happens along like the spectrum of sex, right?
yeah.
So I guess so going back to your original premise here, like you believe gender is inaccurate and confusing, but I guess inaccurate in which way and confusing to whom?
Okay, so let's take an example of like you going to a to a cafe, and then like you order coffee, you come back to the table and like, hey, the barista was really good, she makes very good coffee, or like she was very nice. Like when you use these pronouns, you are interacting with her gender. You have no idea what her identity is from the inside. That is something
Hmm.
that is like innate in her being that she was probably born with, but you're interacting with her like physical appearance or like present, even if she was like wearing jeans and like short hair, whatever. Like you can still,
Hmm.
like, we can use social clues to kind of say that, we assume that it's a woman, and so like you're gonna interact with her gender, and that's what I mean when I say it's not the same thing as gender identity or like your innate feeling of gender, because that is something you
Yeah,
cannot
we
interact with
we
by default. You have to be
we
informed of it.
already addressed that. That's the difference between gender expression, the thing you are interacting with, and gender identity, the thing that people profess to be.
Yeah. So Miriam, what is your gender?
I'm a woman.
Okay, so that's your identity. You just identified woman to me.
Yes.
So
Um,
therefore, that's what it is. You just gave me an example of what gender identity is. When you told me you're a woman, that's your gender identity. The only way I know is by asking you.
the only way for you to know my innate like sense of gender is by asking me. But when we are
That's
Yeah,
right.
interacting outside in the world, like when we have like when we say that women feel like more like scared at night, or like women like kind of get hit on more often or like be harassed more often in public, like no harasser is going to ask you your identity first before harassing you. They just harass you based on how you present. So
yeah,
they
Yeah,
based
but that
are
based
does
interacting
upon
with your gender, not your identity.
yeah,
they're
but
identifying with the expression. They're
yeah,
interacting with your expression
like
at that point.
no one can know what your identity is without asking you. That's why we have gender identity versus gender expression.
Yeah. Even the act of asking your pronouns is not asking your gender. Right? Because people can have, pronouns is just a linguistic expression of someone's gender. The only way you find out somebody's gender identity is if you just flatly ask, what is your gender identity? And if somebody says non-binary, woman, man, whatever, that is the only time you actually get to know their gender identity, is like when you ask them and then they tell you. That's how we know. Now we can approximate and interact with the pronouns that you give, because it is a little cumbersome to say, are you a woman? We don't, it's kind of weird to do that. We just say, oh, Miriam, she, her pronouns. Okay, great. And I'm going to interact with you with those pronouns linguistically, because that is how you decided to express yourself in the language of what that gender expression is. Like, that's why we literally say, try on different pronouns to people who are questioning their gender. It's literally trying them on, because they are external to you, because pronouns are externally used in language. The only way you can ask somebody's internal sense of gender is by asking them. Now, gender expression is a completely different thing, because that is like the harassment part of it all. Just like a woman who is butch isn't probably going to get like as many catcalls, because they present more masculine. But someone who, and it's also men who are very feminine, like, will get hit on and catcalled all the time as well, and the people catcalling don't even realize that that person is, identifying as a man. Like, so again, like, the outward expression of someone's self does not determine the gender that they are.
But then that's what, because you differentiated between gender expression and gender identity, and I agree with that distinction. But then you said that your outward appearance doesn't determine your gender. In this case, you're talking about identity, but then it gets confused. Like, it gets confusing when people like, no, I can't, like, when I see someone, I would interact with their gender. This is gender expression. And then when you cannot tell what people are,
also
except
sometimes
by us, about identity.
Yeah, but what you're describing is what makes gender so messy. It's because the assumption that people make based on gender expression can be wrong. Like, and it's the same with any kind of assumption of somebody else's identity based on anything external about them, right? Like, you can just be wrong. And like, it's okay to be wrong sometimes and be like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and then correct yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you see someone wearing a pair of Jordans, and you're like, "Oh, you're a fan of Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls." And then they're like, "What? No, I just really like the shoes." And you're like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were a fan of the Chicago Bulls." Like, that's just like a social friction, but it's
Yeah.
a completely normal one.
Yeah.
So, like, does when you boil your issue down, is it just people can be wrong in their assumptions sometimes?
No, it's not that people can be wrong. I think that when we conflate the identity with the expression, like, we sometimes can talk over each other. So like,
Well, we're
when
not
like
doing that.
Yeah, that's why
We're
we have
being
two
very
different
distinct.
terms.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which I
people
appreciate,
talk
but like
and people do
sorry.
talk about gender in like a very expansive term, but that's why when we have a more nuanced discussion, we break it down into different parts of like gender identity, gender expression, and like the societal schema of gender. Like, this is why we when we have more nuanced discussions, it becomes more discrete when we talk about these broken down components of overall what people refer to as gender.
Yeah. And I just want to mention this too, Miriam. This is the root of why transphobia is so rampant, right? Because people only want to interact with what they see in the expression of things, because rather than actually getting to know the person and asking them who they are. It's like, you don't look like a woman to me, so therefore you're not a woman, taking away somebody's identity from them, right? Because that is essentially what the transphobic people in the world do, is they literally try to take people's humanity away. And that includes butch, cis women as well, who present masculine but identify as women, and they are, also homophobic, because it's like, how dare you not look like the woman that you're supposed to be? And, because that's really what it comes down to, is people are trying to boil gender down onto the dress that you are wearing, sharing rather than just being more inquisitive or more curious about the person's lived experience. And that's what I think is so beautiful about the trans community and what it brings to the societal conversation is that it invites people to ask more about the person you're speaking to. Like the idea of asking for pronouns or the idea of asking what's your gender identity. That is a more curious question that will get you a deeper connection with the human being rather than seeing somebody across the street that's wearing a dress and saying, "Hey, you don't look like a woman, take that dress off." Right. And that instead it's like, oh, that person has a complex sense of self. I want to know more. And being able to be curious about a person's lived experience is a much more beautiful way of looking at humanity rather than being like, this is confusing and I don't want to deal with it because people aren't looking the way I want them to look like. Because a lot of times it comes from an external place of my feeling about somebody else's expression versus like, what is that other person dealing with and who are they to be who they are, right? Because you may be interacting with somebody who transitioned on day one, and this is the first time they ever wore a dress in public, and you're like meeting this really cool moment in this person's life, and you have an opportunity to engage with that person in the way that they want to be engaged with, but instead, most of the time, they're met with bigotry and shame and hate because they don't look exactly the way they expected them to look. That's why
And
we
that's
make the distinction.
Yes, so just to be fully clear, I would absolutely respect anyone's identity. I would never try to police anyone, what they wear, what they do, what they're called. If that barista turns out to be a closeted trans man or like, early in transition trans man, I would definitely say he, him, and like say, okay, my bad, you're a guy, I will never call you a woman again. But at that point, I would be interacting with his internal like gender identity or whatever. Like he would still
And
be
that's okay.
presenting feminine in the outside, and like so like a closeted trans man or a closeted trans woman are presenting to the world outside like not the gender that they identify as. So like
Exactly.
you could have an identity of a woman, but your gender is a man because that's what you, or like your gender expression is a man because this is what you're showing to the world, like for whatever reason.
Exactly. And that's the value of the curiosity. And guess what? The person that maybe not presenting the way that they are ready to yet and all of that, they understand that too. We live in society. So if there is a trans man that is, a barista that's still presenting fairly femme and then they get misgendered, they're going to understand why. They're not blind. They understand that society is not ready to just ask everybody's gender identity before they interact with people. They're gonna get it. They're in customer service. They understand. But if they trust you enough and they're nice, if you're a kind person, they'd be like, actually, I'm actually going through my transition soon, and blah 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 blah, and I actually go by he him, but don't worry about it. It's fine. Most of those trans people are not gonna bite your head off, right? Because they understand that they don't want to cause a ruckus either about who they are. So it's really, these situations are very niche and very rare and uncommon. And the people who are, quote unquote, still early in their transition or maybe not as passable for whatever reason or whatever reason they want, doesn't matter. Like, society is incredibly cruel to those individuals because of the fact that that's the way people say, I want to identify with what I see that person is. And that's really what it comes down to. And I'm not saying that's what you do. I'm just saying that in society where they flatten gender identity to be expression is where a lot of the root of transphobia is coming from.
Yes, and of course society is very mean, and so we should do our best to kind of like make sure that everyone can express themselves however they want and identify however they want and live however they want. I fully agree with that. But like especially when we're talking about like these transphobes who like every time, this is gonna be a bit cliche, but like the most common like gotcha question that they usually present. It's like, oh, what is a woman? It's like, adult human female. But like that does kind of work in your in like trans women
It
are also adult human female. They have transitioned. Their body composition, like hormones change everything about you, including like how you're treated medically and like your you
but
might have
Miriam,
surgeries, but like yeah.
Miriam, not every trans person goes through hormone replacement therapy or surgical care either, right? So we can't fall down the line of you are a trans woman if you do X, Y, and Z, because that also is a problem. That's called trans medicalism, and I wholly reject trans medicalism because that has nothing to do with the internal identity of who someone is. That's why the definition of woman being an adult human female does not work, because all that is sex with extra steps. That's not what gender is. Gender is not a derivative of sex. Gender is something wholly different than sex itself. And that's why I reject the definition of woman is an adult human female, because it still requires the sex for that person to be a woman. So
Yeah.
therefore, it's not a good definition.
Like the
Oh,
word transgender was invented specifically to be more encompassing of people who had a gender identity different than what they were assigned at birth. And like it was specifically designed to be more inclusive than people who had just transitioned sexually. So like it's been in use for over like maybe 60 years, maybe longer than that, specifically to include more people and make it clear that this isn't just like the handful of people who medically transition, but is also inclusive of people who have a different gender identity, but don't choose for whatever reason to medically transition.
which I don't have any problem with. Obviously, like anyone who
Yeah.
identifies their gender to me,
But
Exactly.
I'm gonna
I guess
identify them as that.
I'm
Yeah.
not trying to like cast any aspersions. I'm not sure where the confusion is because you seem to agree with us on almost every single point here, and we have talked about how there are two different terms to describe the two different things you're talking about. So where is the confusion and the problem? Where does that still lie?
So when I think Josie, I'm sorry, I'm not sure which one is which, but I
Yeah.
think Josie just mentioned that like she would reject this definition of woman because that conflates gender and sex. But
Mm-hmm.
in that scenario, she's talking about gender identity. So that's
Yeah.
where the confusion comes, because usually people who say that statement, they're talking about gender expression, but then you would reply with gender identity. And this is
Yeah.
where it gets confusing because you're talking over each other's, I feel like.
No, because the term transgender specifically refers to identity. And there are some people who act upon that identity in such a way that they medically transition. And there are other people who choose alternative ways to act upon their gender identity in a way that doesn't include a medical transition. And so, like, the distinction that you're looking for here, while I do agree that, like, trans people who medically transition are moving their position on like the sex spectrum. Um, that's not what we're talking about when people are using the term transgender.
Yeah.
Like the term is specifically designed not to talk about what you are bringing up.
But then, okay.
So Miriam, go ahead and say, because we are going to have to move on to the next call soon, but go ahead and say what you were going to say.
I appreciate the time you've spent with me. I was just about to say that, like, usually, like, when we talk about gender in general, like when we say transgender person, like my gender and like all that, we're talking about identity. But then many of these discussions, you would still bring up the same, like, idea about, oh, like different cultures react to different genders differently, different eras react to gender differently. If you meet someone, you interact with their gender, and then you're talking about expression, and then these are two conversations happening at the same time. And I just like, I feel like it muddies the discussion, and that's kind of my main concern.
My response to that is, I think you need to shift how you view that discussion, not as muddy, but as deeper, as more nuanced, as more interesting. Because what you're talking about there is then two people who have different schemas of gender from two different cultures, two different societies coming together, and then they have a discussion about those differences and deepen their understanding, perhaps, about what it means to have a certain gender identity in one culture versus another. And I think that that's an interesting discussion and really cool thing, a really cool thing to do. But I don't think that's a reason to like be upset with the language when the language of gender identity and gender expression would still apply to either schema. The schemas would just be different. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
And I would also posit this as well, is the complexity of language. It, like, English is limited, right? Like, or English or language, period, doesn't matter what language you're speaking, is limited. And we, as you know, a species of humanity, and how we communicate to each other will broaden over time. Like, and, Jack said, she's a person of literature. Like, when you look at Homer's Odyssey, like, there wasn't even the color blue yet. Like nobody even had the word for color blue, because you had the sea was as red as wine. Wait, why is the sea wine colored? It's because humans didn't even understand the concept of the color blue yet. But then we were able to create more words to better describe the world around us, and we are using old language to catch up to the understanding that human identity is much deeper and richer than what people used to think about it. That's why even the word sexual orientation is a weird one, because it has nothing to do with like the biological parts another person has that you're attracted to. It's the gender that you're attracted to, right? It would be like gender orientation is probably a more accurate term than sexual orientation. But we use the word sexual orientation because it was developed in a world where gender didn't have as richness of the depth of understanding that we have it today. Same thing with bisexual, right? Like, the idea of bisexual, it still includes non-binary people, right? It doesn't have to be like bi as the binary. But again, it's because we advance our language, and sometimes it takes time for society to catch up. And the people who are like dragging their feet to catch up are the people who refuse to want to find that depth in the other person, because that would require empathy. That would require somebody to have to learn more about an individual than they're comfortable learning about. And that is the root of the bigotry behind everything, is that people are stuck in their ways, and it's like, it's only man and woman, God, Adam and Eve, and that's the only way I'll ever see it. And anybody who tells me different is a bad human being, right? And that is what the problem is. Instead of being able to say, maybe it isn't just Adam and Eve. Maybe it is more than man and woman. And having the ability to critically think and expand their knowledge on the description of humanity itself is a gift. And the people who refuse that gift are bigoted behind the curve and will never be able to catch up until they accept that humanity is much more than they ever thought it was.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate your patience.
Yeah.
And I'm
sorry. Absolutely. You're great. You're awesome. I really appreciate the conversation, and none of that was directed toward you. I'm just talking about the general person who tries to be stuck in their own ways. So I think you're great. I think you are a very inquisitive person that is asking for curiosity, and I think that is a very valuable trait in a human person. So you're great.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for calling in.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. All right.
I think we broke through. I
I
think
think so too.
I think that made sense when we hit the end there.
Sounded
So,
like she was playing with a tube.
oh,
The whole
maybe. I mean, also who doesn't? I play with little scrunchies
Little
while I'm on this
Doctor
show.
Softhole, little Doctor
No,
Softhole,
no, these are the
every now and then.
progeny.
The progeny.
Yeah.
I play with scrunchies too. All right. Well, that was a good call. Thank you, Miriam, for calling. Let's go ahead and revisit the poll that we put up earlier.
Let's do it.
All right. So, is cutting off parents sometimes the answer for trans people? And we had, I don't know if we put it in the chat. I'm not, oh, yes, we did. So, let me double check here. So, the chat said 96% yes and 4% no,
Ooh.
which isn't, I mean, well, actually, that's more surprising than I thought. I thought it would actually be a little more split. And I guess this also goes to the article that you shared with me today, Jack, about, how cutting off parents is actually becoming more trendy,
Hmm.
in a lot of ways. Do you have any insights or thoughts?
I mean, I think what we're really seeing is that like a generation of people, like millennials in particular, were raised to believe that they deserve to be treated well and that like in fact, we want the country to get better and not worse. And when they run up against someone in their parental unit who is MAGA and who is actively campaigning against, the rights of LGBTQ people, and sometimes their kids might be queer, their kids have friends who are queer or trans, millennials now might have kids who are queer and trans. Like what's winding up happening is that more and more people are just like, okay, I'm done with this. We can't keep having these conversations where you dehumanize me, and they cut off their parents, and like it's a really hard decision to make. I did that with my own father, and like it sucks, but like having to defend your personhood and identity to a parent in particular has a lot can cause a lot of damage. Um,
You
Especially when
know,
it's over and over again over time.
yeah, you know what's interesting about this conversation is if you were to go back 10, 15 years ago,
Mhm.
no one would bat an eye about parents cutting off their kids for, being
Oh yeah.
queer, being gay, abandoning their religion, having different political views. I've seen many parents that cut off kids because they're Democrats, and that was just seen as, those kids screwed up. You're right to kick them out of your home, right? It's
Yeah.
not under your roof. But now it seems like the narrative is now flipped on its head. And
Hmm.
now what has happened, and I think this is really interesting, that's just popped in my head, is how the onus is now of the ownership of ourselves and our autonomy is now in the hands of the youth and the
Yep.
and the kids, where kids are like, you know what? You would have kicked me out if I was trans. Now
Hmm.
I'm going to kick you out of my life because you won't accept who I am. And I think that's a very powerful juxtaposition of where the parent like had the domineering control over that child's life and is willing to kick them out on the street versus the other way around where the parent feels entitled to be invited to Thanksgiving. And I don't know. I think that's very interesting, but the articles are written about how dare these kids kick their parents out of their lives. It's like you never said that about the parents kicking out their kids because they were gay. Like, it's a really
Yeah.
interesting dynamic on how the media spins it. Like we are the bad ones for cutting off parents when parents have been doing this to
Hmm.
us since the beginning of parenting.
And I mean,
Like,
like, if people are like, "Oh, well, it's not that common," I do want to point out that research has been done on why, like what the makeup of the homeless youth population is in the United States. Um, 40% of homeless youths, roundabout, are homeless because they're gay. because they're LGBTQ plus, and because their parents have kicked them out. Um,
Yep.
and like that's I think an underreported statistic that's extraordinarily relevant to questions like this.
Yeah,
You
and it's
know,
never brought up. It's never
and
brought up. It's never a media cycle. It's
yeah,
never the
no,
news.
it
It's about grandpa getting kicked out of Thanksgiving.
yeah, oh no, your rich uncle is no longer allowed to see your kid because your kid is gay. And he's gonna write an op-ed in the local paper about it, about how mad he is.
Yeah,
You shouldn't be
yeah,
allowed to do that. And it's just like, people are protecting their kids better. I think people
yeah.
are protecting themselves better.
Hmm.
And what it really boils down to is that being gay or being trans isn't the choice, but being a bigot is. And like the hope in cutting someone off is that eventually they are going to see the light and eventually they are going to come back and apologize.
Yep.
But some people, some adults, they grow so set in their ways that they can't even conceive of a world where they would need to apologize for being a bigot.
Look, my biological dad, I haven't talked to him about 7 to 8 years. And he cut me off because he's a MAGA, I was, more Democrat, and he just couldn't stand having conversations with me. And then after I came out as trans, that's when he blocked me on Facebook. And then,
Mhm.
I don't have a relationship with him. And you know what? I don't care,
Yeah.
and I was just talking to my mom about it yesterday, like, about how he's missing out. I think I'm pretty cool. It's like he's like his loss, right? And I think there's a difference between cutting off parents and then giving them time to digest,
Yeah.
right? I had to give my family a little time to digest before they were able to really understand who I was. And because a lot of times parents think it's a phase. It's like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
you're like, and it's just like, but once they start seeing it and realizing that this is the only access they're going to have to you is by accepting you who you are, I think a lot of parents will come around to it. And I think that when we do go no contact with parents, that we should always try to leave a door open for them
Hmm.
to be able to reach out and say, hey, like, if you're able to accept this, I'm more than willing to come back, right? And I think there is some of that as well, where
Yeah.
it can be a little bit of a two-way street, but again, it's your life.
Yeah.
You don't have to be connected to
And
the parents that you have.
while it's a two-way street, I would also say there's something extraordinarily freeing and I think a necessary realization to have is that your parents' acceptance of you is not your responsibility to earn. Like
Yeah,
it's their responsibility. Your parents like created you. They have a responsibility to love you and protect you. And when they fail in that responsibility, it is not your job to convince them that that's what they have to do.
yeah,
And you are not under no obligation to like continuously hurt yourself trying to make them understand because
yeah.
they're adults. They have the
Hmm.
capacity to understand if they want to. They're just refusing to.
Yeah, it's true. And so like my mom, right, she's gonna be, 60 soon, and she shared with me just yesterday that she was talking to, a family friend or a friend or a person that like in her life, and she was like, "Oh, how many kids you got?" And she said for the first time without thinking, she said two daughters. Right, instead of and me being one of those daughters, and she
Mhm.
called me so excited to let me know that it's become so natural for her that she doesn't even think about it anymore. And for me that was so sweet and kind that she did that because she worked so hard, right, to try to make sure. And it just took her a second. She raised me for 34 years. Like, well, she raised me for 34 years, but had me for 34 years before I was Josie before the eye, right? Like that was something that she had to grow into, and it took her a while, but she got there.
Yeah.
Yes, is it 6 years later? Yeah, but you know what, Mom, I love you. Like you did it.
Yeah.
Like it's great. Like it was always there inside of you. So yeah. So there is some of that too. But some people refuse to do it. And
Yep.
that's their loss. Because I have a great mom on the other side and a terrible biological on the other, but I also have a great stepdad, so I kind of win the balance there. So, yeah. But it took time. They're
Yeah.
conservatives in Texas. It took time.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we spent a lot of time on that poll. So lines are still open. If you are going to call, make sure you call 720-619-2288. And if you are outside of the United States, you can use the web caller in the link below. Make sure you like and subscribe, as that helps so much. It helps the channel so much. You know, here at the line, we've grown so much. It's wild. I remember being here a host on the line when we were less than 100,000. It's so wild. And now we're over 200,000. It's
Let's
so exciting.
go.
It's so exciting. Also, we read super chats at the end, $5 or more. Make sure you put hashtag Team Josie or hashtag Team Jack, or RBJ, however Jack likes it. And then we will have a little competition at the end. Also, make sure you join our Patreon, because we have exclusive Patreon content. We actually have an app that is like a news app, so you can get like line curated content that is like the news that we like to make sure we share with our audience. We also have our LineCon, where we do kind of like a little show, which is very exclusive. I've done a couple now. Have you done one yet, Jack?
I don't think so.
All right, you got to do one. You got to do one. The line cons are super fun. You get to talk for, take questions. You get to do a little, it's like your own little TED talk. You get the like little platform and talk to a
Yeah.
lot of really cool people who are on the Patreon. So make sure you go and do that as well. It's a good time. Join the movement, which
And we can
is
talk about
the
anything,
line.
right?
Anything. I talk about getting involved in politics. The last talk I did was out because I'm not going to ask Jack after the show what that is. What's the point? That's just a waste of,
Yeah.
the
Yeah, you'll have
time,
to find out at
I have
LineCon.
to find out. I will have to find out. So make sure you do that to find out. And make sure we'll let Jimmy know that you're interested in doing that. Great. So let's go on to our next caller. It looks like another language and gender question. So let's
Okay.
go ahead and take Louisa, from France. Her pronouns. You are live on the line, on the Transatlantic Calling Show with Jack and Josie. It looks like you have some questions about language and gender. Tell us about it.
Hi, actually, we've chatted before. It was a really interesting conversation. This was, I don't know, probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago, but I was in Australia at the time. On Well, I was discussing how I had a friend who has body dysmorphic disorder and also recently came out as trans. We were going through that, learned a lot, and I think in the chat, I committed a bit of a faux pas, which I'd like to talk about now because I'm I, I, I feel like I sort of understand the tension with certain types of language, but I'd
Mhm.
like to sort of see where you guys sit with this. So I think I was referring to trans people as like the expression, as transgenderism, which I think in the chat they said that's probably something that I shouldn't do. And recently, not only my friend obviously has coming out as trans, but also someone I work with quite often comes and spends a lot of time in my office. He's a trans man, and because people are really cruel sometimes, and so there's an instinct now to make sure I get things right and not cause offense unnecessarily, but also not also really come to terms and understand the position without and working through questions, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
working through why is transgenderism this? What's wrong with this term?
Mm. And well, mostly what's wrong with it is that it gets used primarily not in like academia. It's mostly a product of like the turf movement. Sorry, I had a little bit of a brain fart. The turf movement. Like a lot of people who are trying to make it seem like they are not making a bigoted argument try to gussy it up as like, oh, we have no problem with trans people. It's the ideology of transgenderism that we're against. And so like whereas trans people, we are like we're not we don't have an ideology of like transness. We just are transgender people. Um, it's does that distinction make sense? I know I stumbled
I
through
would.
it.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's all, I guess maybe from my perspective, it seems a bit sort of reductionist, because, ism, it's a suffix, it modifies a root word, and it can. So, for example, as you say, if you add an ism to social or capital, you're getting towards like a doctrine or an ideology. But that's not the case if
Exactly.
you add an ism to a word like archaic or colloquial. So a colloquialism, an archaism, which is an expression of something, or a characteristic of X. So that's my sort of framing from where I sort of stood when I used that term. And I
Yeah,
Yeah.
understand, obviously, there's a lot of tension with language now. So it's like,
yeah.
well, what's the path forward here? Is it that we all become a little bit more careful with language? I think that's a good idea in general, and that might
Yeah.
be what needs to happen. But I also think that it's better to, I guess, police the behavior than the word.
And I guess like part of it would be like, would you call somebody who had like a heart attack and needed like a triple bypass open heart surgery someone who adhered to cardiacism? Like, I, no, you just call them somebody who went to the doctor for like a triple bypass surgery. They're not a believer in like a specific ideology. And like trans people are the same way to a large extent. Like a lot of us are just like, we want to just exist as we are, as we desire to be. It's not an ideology per se. It's more like this is the established science and medicine around it.
Yeah, and Louisa,
Yeah.
you've heard the term the gay agenda, right? Have you heard of that? Have you heard somebody say that before?
I don't know. Maybe in passing. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
No, I
so
don't think so.
back in, the time where the bigoted trend was being against marriage equality or just gay people in general, they used to call it the gay agenda, right? They didn't call it gayism, right? They called it the gay agenda, which was kind of like this agenda that we're going to try to make all your kids gay. We're going to try to make you gay. We're going to try to make everybody gay. And it was like this idea that it was some like nefarious plot or plan to spread the ideology of gayness across the entire country and world, which would destroy, the sanctity of marriage was what they would say a lot of times, and some still do. The transgenderism is kind of like the evolution of like the gay or trans agenda. It's like this idea
I
that
see what
there
you're
is a
saying.
and so people who use it, and I'm glad you used the word collectively. I can never say the word, but you said it.
It's
But
hard.
basically, yeah, I sometimes I now say common parlance because that's easier to say. But the idea is that the they that I'm talking about are the people who are trying to eradicate transgenderism from public life, right? Like those folks who literally use those type of words, because if they say we're going to eradicate transgenderism, it sounds a lot better than saying we're going to eradicate trans people. So it's kind of
Yeah,
gussying up
yeah,
the
I see. It's
language a little bit.
dehumanizing, whereas the other term
Exactly.
seems more academic and then tries to carry off the credence of something that is academic when it's not, by using that sort of language. Am I understanding that
Hmm.
correctly?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And that's why we reject the term transgenderism, because it is used morally immoral, no, sorry, used in a way that is more often than not in a negative context that's trying to say that we are trying to do something with our transness into doing something to children, or trying to make somebody trans, or trying to like make it in so everybody's faces, and like the whole idea of like you're shoving it down our throat, stop saying it, right? And or stop being it. And so it allows that, like you said it perfectly, it dehumanizes the trans people and tries to make it something that is external to the human being that is trans. And yes, we can all look at, when we look at words and etymologies and things like that, we see it all the time. Like you explained it before, like socialism, you know, but there's also racism and all these isms and all of these different things. But unfortunately, you know, in the English language, people take and bastardize the roots of words all the time, and we just have to be extra vigilant when these words are perverted in such a way.
Yeah, I would
Yeah, I
also
think that
oh
makes sense.
yeah. I would also just say like Josie is saying, a lot of these terms get politicized. Like you can even look at trans ideology or gender ideology are terms that also get politicized. And there's nothing grammatically incorrect about that formulation, but how it gets used by these groups is as like a cudgel against LGBTQ
Yeah.
people. And
So
that's the issue with it.
So I guess the
Yeah.
next, so here's something that where I find it to be interesting, right? Because obviously you've got these sorts of people, and you're absolutely right. And this is why language evolves. We've got to be careful how we interact with the world. And obviously I can clearly see now, right? So yeah, it's dehumanizing language. I can understand that. I guess the question then is, what's the approach to work through the specific tension for people? For example, last time I called and I didn't mean it in that way and I committed a faux pas. Is it, you know, so what how do we sort of come together so that we don't miss each other when there isn't any sort of like malcontent or dehumanization coming with the way that we talk to each other?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the way you address any social faux pas. You go, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it in that way. This is how I meant it."
Yep.
And then
Right.
like say, and maybe like ask, what should I say? What phrase should I use instead, or word should I
Yep.
use instead?
And it also goes
That was going
both
to be my
ways,
next
Louisa.
question.
Yeah, it
Oh,
goes
sorry.
both
So what did
ways.
you?
It goes both ways too. So like the person, like let's say you commit a faux pas, which happens often,
Mhm.
especially when you're it's called, you know, that's what they call it, community competence for a reason, right? We have to be able to understand each other's communities, and when you're going into a new community, you're gonna put your foot in your mouth. That's just how it goes. And it's about the community understanding that you're coming from a different place of knowledge and understanding about that community, that they would be able to say, okay, Luis is not here calling us, you know, the worst people, not trying to delegitimize our existence. But if you say something wrong, that person just politely says, and I've done it many times on this show, where I'm like, it's actually not transgenderism. We usually say trans people. Right. And we do that. And then people are like, oh my gosh, I didn't know. I'm so sorry. And then they correct themselves and they move on. You know, it like some people, for example, still use the word transsexual. Like, and I don't really prefer that terminology for myself. Some people prefer it for themselves, but it's not what I like. So sometimes I go, I just usually say trans, right? And that's usually more acceptable to most audiences that you're talking to that is particularly trans. And so I think that we just need to give each other more grace. I think we just need to be more kind to each other and realize that not everybody's coming from a nefarious place. Some people are coming from a place of curiosity, and we
Mhm.
should not only respect it, but we should embrace it and encourage it.
Well, I can understand how yeah, I agree, but I can also understand when you're in a position like where you're meeting people and you've got, you know, you want to sort of you know, have your gender expression and that sense of acceptance. Like we all want to be accepted. It doesn't really matter what, you know. Well, I've got ADHD, for example. Like I want to be accepted in that way without being sort of judged because of something of who you are and all of those sorts of things. So I can understand the sort of the idea that you might have sort of a negative association to begin with, even if that's not what the other person meant, because it's, you know, it's such a sore and issue that doesn't really need to be an issue, but for whatever reason it is. So I guess I have this my friend's brother who is transitioning now, and I have this colleague at work. who he likes coming in and spending time with me in the office, and I know it's because people are just really not nice. And I'm worried now that I'm going to, well, do something, commit these sort of faux pas and things like that. And I don't want to make this person feel like that office, which is a bit of my office, for whatever reason, they're a little bit of a safe space for them. And I don't want to damage that accidentally. I was wondering if you had any advice for that.
You should tell them exactly what you just told us.
Yeah.
Like you just need to say, hey, I want to make sure that I make this a safe place for you. Correct me if I'm wrong. When I'm saying things, I don't mean it in a nefarious way. I think you're a wonderful human being, and I just want to make sure that I'm doing everything that makes you feel comfortable. Like, being able to have that empathy and be able to share that with somebody is what you do, because nobody's going to expect you to understand everything about the trans culture like the first time you meet a trans person. Like
Mm-hmm.
hell, even myself, like as a trans, before I came out as trans, even as a trans person, I put my foot in my mouth many times. Like I work for a trans organization and I said something that was completely not okay, and I got freaking like everybody's like, Josie, you can't say that. I'm like, what? Why? And then I got told right away, and I was like, oh shoot, I am so sorry, right? And so it's about having empathy for each other, but you should tell that person that.
Yeah, because being
Yeah,
upfront about how you feel and how you want to approach your relationship with that person is going to matter a whole lot, right? Like trans people are used to people not knowing anything about transness, or they're used to being treated poorly. And like just being upfront and saying, hey, I want to be the best friend to you that I can be. And I apologize if I, stick my foot in my mouth, but like, let me know and let me know what I can when I do and how I can correct it. And like you're gonna be off to a wonderful start.
I guess my fear in this instance is that so this he's very much passing as a trans man, and I don't want to draw attention to it. Maybe that's me just being overly cautious. I don't want to draw attention and make him feel like he's not passing. He really is. So I guess that's why I haven't had this sort of direct conversation.
I mean,
Yeah.
I would think about it this way. Louisa, you've interacted with people with like physical disabilities, right?
Yes.
And sometimes, a lot of people don't want to just publicly talk about their disability, but once you build a friendship with that person, you start asking them, "Hey, what accommodations, what things can I help you out with? What is it like? And then you basically are getting to know that person on a more personal level. Then it's like natural. You're not just going to go to the a person that you just met and be like, "Hey, I know you're trans, but I want to make sure I treat you right. What do I tell you?" Like that doesn't work, right? Because that's a very
Yeah.
traumatic thing. But if you have a relationship and a friendship with this person already, like it's not going to be out of the blue that you are just like, hey, like you could start as like, how is everything? How is life? How, is everybody here treating you all right? Like, is there anything like, just it's that natural curiosity for someone else that a lot of people don't get. Like, I mean, people rarely have deep conversations with each other anymore. And, to find, curiosity in another person's lived experience is actually very flattering. And some people will just gush and be an open book and like, girl, let me tell you, or they'll be like, no, it's actually fine. I don't have to worry about it. You're fine. I've never had a problem with you. And then that's it. Right? It could go either way. Right? It could be like, nah, it's fine. Right? Or it could be like, well, let me tell you. And then they just gush
Yeah.
or something in
And
between.
and also like it is highly likely that in the moment the response will just kind of be like, "Oh, well, I can't recall anything you've said," and like move like that moment will pass.
Hmm.
But this person will very much appreciate it, right?
Hmm.
Like I know if I was in an office and I had a office friend and like they told me up front, like, oh yeah, I want to do right by you. And I might screw up sometimes, but I wanna make sure that like I got your back. Like that would mean a lot.
And Louisa, I do want to ask a question for context. Has
Mhm.
this person already disclosed to you that they're trans?
Good pick.
No,
Oh, then don't even worry about it then.
Yeah.
because
If it co
I'm
yeah.
so the only reason why I know is through administrative stuff. So no, they haven't.
I
That's why I was
I
concerned about the passing.
No,
Mm,
you're
You see,
right. You're
yeah.
you are right then. Your instincts are right
Yep.
because if this person hasn't already expressed the fact that they're trans, they're probably not saying it for good reason. And this is just an
yeah,
opportunity for you to just get to know more about the person outside of their gender identity because you already accept them and see them as a man. And your friendship with that person, if they decide to disclose it to you, then great, then you can ask the questions. But I would definitely not approach them saying, "Hey, I know you're
Yeah.
trans."
Yeah.
That is a
yeah.
very
Okay,
different
okay.
situation.
Yeah.
That's what I was
Sorry.
worried about because I
I'm glad I caught that. I'm glad
Yeah.
I clocked that because yeah, if they're just living their life as a guy and they're just around and being and nobody knows the wiser, let them be who they are because there's a lot of trans people that don't want to even be associated with the idea of them being trans and they're just the guy in the office and that's what they prefer and they don't want to make it a key part of who they are in the workplace and that's completely and wholly okay. For me, I spill my tea everywhere, and that's just kind of how it goes. But other than that, I think like if I was in a workplace that wasn't working in equality or human rights, which is what my profession is, I probably wouldn't talk about me being trans very often. In fact, I talk more about me being trans at work and in the show than I do anywhere else in my life. Even on my campaign, I didn't even talk about being trans that often. I was very open about me being trans, but I didn't even do it very often, even as a person that was running for public office. Even though it was a core part of my identity, it just wasn't the front page of my identity. And
yeah,
so
I can understand that being a bit
yeah.
neurospicy.
Yeah.
It's a part of me, but it's not like an everyday topic.
Yeah, yeah. So like, you know, because there may be a point where you like, let's say you go and, you know, have a drink after work or whatever, happy hour, and you know, you have a conversation and it never comes up. And it's just like, well, this person just doesn't talk about them being trans.
Yeah, that
And just respect it. Just respect it.
yeah, it's okay, good. Yeah, because that's what I thought, and it's maybe this is. I'm not sure if this is a. It's not necessarily a moral thing. It's maybe just a you no matter what the social sort of scenario is or who the person is, and all the plethora of backgrounds and curious, interesting, wonderful things about people. But this is obviously quite new for me. So yeah, I'm not sure if I feel really sort of guilty that I don't know more and I should know more, or if it's okay to be, you know, that it hasn't really come up in my life context until now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Like
Louisa,
it sounds like you've got now your bases covered. Like you're already doing great. Like this person is obviously developing like a friendship with you, and if like he does disclose, now you know you can like be upfront and be like, "Hey, I might screw up sometimes, but just call me out on it and I'll do better." Like you
yeah.
now you've got both ends of it covered.
Yeah, and Luisa, this is something I would be very curious about because now I'm talking about the equality work that I do and the human rights work that I do. Are you somebody in HR?
I'm not in human. No, I'm not in HR.
So my curiosity now stems, how did you find out something so personal about somebody?
So I work for an aerospace company, and I run their education program. And
Hmm.
so in order to do sort of data privatize student data. I work with a project manager on that, and this person was a student who's now employed with us, and that's
Oh,
why a
I
part of
see.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it
So
clocked them.
that's why. In
I
fact, I probably shouldn't
I
know,
well,
only because my
yeah,
project manager.
and honestly, this is something that you can do and be like that secret super ally to the community of being able to then point out to HR and point out to whoever is in charge of these data files to let them know that they could have potentially, like, what if you weren't a good person, Louisa? What if you were a bigot? What if you were a bad human being and tried to make this person's life miserable? So the idea of that confidentiality is so important for people's identity, especially, in the UK or it's anywhere really in the country and in the world. And so like the idea of keeping people's personal information is so incredibly important, especially now more than ever, that you could be somebody be like, hey, we need to figure out what's going on with our privacy stuff here, because if you could find that
Yeah.
out, there could be somebody else that could find that out, and then that could cause a whole lot of problems for your coworker who's just trying to do their job.
Yeah, so in this particular it's a bit so it wasn't really a data leak on our end. It was on the school's end,
Mm,
because we weren't supposed to know lots of different things, but sometimes teachers will just do things
yeah,
that not meaningly, like it was one of those sort of situations.
yeah.
And yeah,
And maybe
so
maybe
it's
maybe that's something that you should reach out to that school and make sure that they're not sharing people's information like that. Because I think that is that
yeah.
is that is wholly inappropriate in a lot of ways, because people shouldn't have their tea spilled unless they are willing to do that on their own. Especially now more than ever in this world, because it is a scary place for trans people right now.
Yeah,
Because I'm
absolutely. No,
sure
and
that
you're absolutely right.
your coworker would be completely offended, I think, if they knew that that got leaked. And
Hmm.
that, and now I'm really glad, like, don't approach this
Oh,
person as a trans
so
person.
I have told the project manager that this came to me, so they're aware of the what's happened and tried to stop it. But that's not. I literally make and design courses. I
Oh
all I
yeah, for
have is I
sure.
deliver the.
But I
So
would
this is
I
not my
the
area at all. So I just have to
if
report
s-
it when it happens.
yeah, and for the safety of your coworker, right? You may want to have that project manager, either somebody needs to disclose to your coworker, that is probably HR or somebody, that this information was leaked about them, and they should just keep an eye out just in case that they get abused or have things happen to them that is super weird all of a sudden. I don't know. I'm a little bit more paranoid, and if I had my information leaked like that, I would want to know as a person. But I have to
Okay,
be like,
I'll
wait,
do that. I haven't done a formal sort of report. It's it's all sort of just more casual. So I might do that actually, because now that you sort of have laid all of that, it should be really obvious. It's not really my area. I just I build the
well,
courses and
yeah,
make games.
yeah, I
Educational
would
games. So
definitely. Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and I know this conversation got deeper than you were probably ready for it to go, but I will say that this is a really great opportunity for a learning experience for all the people involved, because I'm sure it was wholly not malicious, but it's also very important for that, I think, that human being to kind of know that, hey, this is kind of floated, this happened. Has anybody given you a problem? Because it'll make them feel protected. It will make them feel better in the workplace too. But again, I would not take any of this advice. I would talk to your human resources and figure this out. Because that's probably the
I'm
right
going to
way to
do
do
that
it.
now. I'm going to do that formally now,
Yeah, you
so
should.
that it's
You should.
documented.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Awesome. Well, I'm happy we had this conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah, you've been
me
lovely.
too. Me
You
too.
have been lovely. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Louisa. You got any last questions for us before we move on to the next call?
No, that's all. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you. All right, bye. Wow. All right.
Yeah.
That was interesting. I'm glad we talked through that though. That could have been wholly bad in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah, that
You
I
know.
mean like I was braced for the worst and then it just turned into a lovely chat and like there was a lot of understanding and curiosity there and that's honestly like the best possible approach.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. For
I'll be
sure.
right back.
Okay. You're gonna be right back, so I will just vibe with the chat here. How are you doing, chat? I hope you are doing well. And it was a nice call. And yeah, so if you there's still time to call in. We still have time on the lines are still open. So if you want to give us a call, call 720-619-2288. Also, like and subscribe and join the Patreon. It's a good time. I know we want a spicy call. I would love a spicy call. We may have one coming up soon. Um, See, I always knew God was non-binary. I heard the voice of God there. Um, yeah, do it because the non-binary God tells us so. That's just how it goes. Great. So waiting on Jack to get back. I'm just kind of reading some of the chats here. I'm glad that some of you listening to at the work. Hopefully, you're not getting too distracted as you are listening to my voice as we are going through. Yeah. So, Lux, isn't there a fundraiser coming up? I could. Let me do that now. All right. And
Oh, I didn't realize I wasn't audible to the stream. Sorry, everybody. Now you should be able to hear me.
oh my gosh. No, it's just the voices in my head. You can't, it's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, totally fine. All right. Let's see. Let's see. All right, here we go. We got D Evangelicals on Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern time, because I believe this is set for Eastern time for me. And that's going to be with Sarah and Justin. We also have the Sunday show at 2 p.m. We have Calling It Now on Sunday at 5 p.m. These are all Eastern times. I know you're used to me saying it in Central, but I'm saying it Eastern because East Coast is best coast. The Sunday show
It
is
doesn't
also
even
at 8
rhyme.
p.m.
That's terrible.
You know what? It's because it's the best. It doesn't need a rhyme. It's just a fact. All right. Don't need no rhymes. And calling it now on Monday at 3 p.m. Line podcast on Monday at 5 p.m. Skeptalk at 7, and that will be on Monday at 7 p.m. We have Chewed Gum at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, followed by calling it now at 9:30 p.m. And then we have the Hang Up at 7 p.m. On Wednesday, and then we have TACIS again with Lux and me. And then again, that's the lineup. So Jack took off. Let's I guess we can go ahead and get the call started because I think
You
Jack
were
still has.
asking, and so I was going to let you know that the Secular Student Alliance fundraiser, because nobody could
Oh,
hear me
yes.
earlier, we have an upcoming Secular Student Alliance fundraiser in September on the 19th, which I believe is a Saturday. What we usually do is kind of like an all day long event, and given what we did with this most recent fundraiser for the Recovering from Religion Foundation, I'm guessing that we're going to do stuff in the week leading up to it as well. But yeah, so make sure, guys, the week of Saturday or the week of September 19th, if y'all want to tune in and support Secular Student Alliance, it's really important to combat the presence of TPUSA on college campuses. Investing in Secular Student Alliance, in my opinion, is an investment in our future. So check that out when it's coming up soon.
That's right. I was a member of the Secular Student Alliance in college, and that's where I met my first friend group when I was in college, and it was super great and super wonderful because it was the first step into my journey of deconstruction myself. And it gave me so much fun when the Westboro Baptist Church people would show up to San Diego State University where I went to college. And it was a good time because I had a whole group of friends go and help me be a part of the heckling of the Westboro Baptist Church people. Because boy, that was fun. Um, Awesome. All right. Um, all right, perfect. So let's go ahead and take our next call. We have Val from the UK. You are live on the Transatlantic Holland Show on the line. You are live with Jack and Josie.
Howdy.
And you want to talk about trans is natural, but not natural order. Can you give us a description of what you mean by that?
Yes, thank you for having me. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I
Yeah.
hear you clearly. Thank you.
All right, all right, all right. So it's better. Okay, yeah, thank you. So I'll quickly do this. So I think I'm not sure if you already know the distinction I was making, because we can have we don't have to argue that being transgender is unnatural. I can easily concede that. Like, if by unnatural, you mean in the sense that it can never occur in nature. So that's because we know that something can naturally occur and still not be naturally ordered. Like, natural law is asking a different question. Like, what is this thing by nature? And what is it ordered towards? For example, illness, being sick is natural in the sense that it occurs naturally. But we don't conclude therefore, that illness is the healthy condition of the body. So natural in this case, and saying something like naturally ordered are not the same thing. So my argument, to tie it to the trans issue, is that human sexuality has an objective structure. So like as human beings, we're either male or female. And that distinction is not something that is, socially constructed. It's not society invented. So I think it's grounded in the way human organism, is ordered towards reproduction and then bonding, or as you say, union of both sexes. So the question, if I'm concluding here, is that it's not like simply whether asking whether transgender identification can occur naturally, but I think a better question is whether someone's subjective identity will have any power to change what the person objectively are. You get what I mean? So I'll have you respond.
I
then
do.
Maybe we'll have
we follow.
Yeah. You want to go first, Jeff, or you want?
No, you take the floor.
Okay, yeah, for sure. So, first off, I hear what you're saying, but I want to just ask you a question. Do you see a difference between sex and gender?
Yeah, I don't think they are exactly the same thing, but I think one is based on the other. Like gender is based on sex. Like, let's say if you ask me.
Oh, I lost you. Well, your phone may have went to sleep. Make sure you wake up your phone.
You still there, Val?
Sometimes your phone might go to sleep. You just have to move your phone.
Oh, are you there?
Yeah, there we are.
So you have to keep your phone awake if you're calling. So on the web caller. So go ahead, and I think the last thing you said was sex and gender. They're linked. Oh no!
Oh, we lost him.
Did we lose him for real? For real?
It looks like he might be back in the call-in queue.
Oh,
Maybe?
yeah, Val is back in the calling queue, so I'm gonna.
Yeah, are you still there?
Yes,
yeah, we're still
there
here.
You are. Yes.
Oh,
there you are.
I didn't know that if your phone kind of goes dark, it stops. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no worries. We're still here. So the last thing that I heard was that you said that sex and gender you feel are linked.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So my contention is that sex and gender is not always linked. So
Would
so
you say,
so
okay.
yeah, so meaning if someone is trans, like I am a trans woman, I was assigned male at birth, so that's how I was born. I was born male. And then I, as a woman, as I am a trans woman, identify as a woman, so therefore I'm a trans woman. So my womanhood doesn't have anything to do with me being born male. It's just about the fact that my gender is different from my assigned sex at birth. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, it does make sense. I understand it. So that means you are coming from like a strong nominalist, like a social constructionist position, like saying that, like saying
Yes.
the word man and woman, they are just categories, that their boundaries are
Yes.
fundamentally established by, our social practices.
Exactly.
Right.
So for example, a black woman, a curly-haired woman, a cis woman, and a trans woman are all types of woman.
So I get that nominalism. So that means the opposite view would be like saying male or female or woman or man, as in these words will correspond to realities that are grounded in human nature. That's not the position you hold, right?
Um, Almost. So sex, like, is what the male and female is, right? Male and female is based, those are sex-based terms. So that's how you're biologically, your biological makeup of when you're born and all of those things. That's your sex. And
Mm-hmm.
then your gender identity is something that a person has, which is part of the social construction, but is a part of who you are as a person is your gender identity. I will say that having a gender identity is a natural thing to have. Right. And sometimes some people don't have gender identity at all. So those people are agender. So they don't have a strong sense of gender. But like I will say that gender identity is not something that is made up or something that we just put on ourselves. It's something that already exists inside of us. It's just gender identity is the word that we use to describe that social need to be a part of that group.
Okay, like so if I asked you if the word woman is socially constructed, although you said it's partly socially constructed and
It
partly
is.
who you are, but okay,
It's
let's
who you
drill
are.
down and see to what degree. Now, what objective, like a reality, if the word a man or woman, they are socially constructed, then what like objective reality will make someone a woman rather than just merely something like a society call them, that just making the society call them woman? Is there anything that you can point to? This is the objective reality that makes someone a woman rather than just making society call them a woman.
Well, so the reality that you would make an appeal to would be dependent on the different society you are in, for example, because what it has meant to be a man or a woman varies from society to society. And again, some societies have more than two genders. And so there's something else at work here rather than just biology, though oftentimes there is a correlation there between sex and gender. Obviously, transgender people are not very common, but when we are talking about the objective reality that it relates to, we're usually talking about how society interacts with itself to create these socially constructed categories of what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman. And again, every individual in society is going to have a little bit of a different idea of what it means to be a man versus what it means to be a woman, or what it means to be a third gender individual, right? So it's created out of a bunch of social and societal expectations working together that we then absorb by existing in the world and interacting with our peers. And then when you identify as a gender, you are making an appeal to those socially constructed categories of what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a man, etc. Right?
Yep.
So I don't know if that
Yeah,
answers that question.
Yeah, I kind of touched on it, but I want to explore it a little bit further. So if okay, let's make a distinction here and say okay, maybe start from where we agree that sex will be like the biological reality of being male or female. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, then gender. Okay, now the distinction I want to make is between gender roles and then gender identity. Now, if I said that gender roles will be, socially developed, expectations about how men and women should, for example, dress and behave and walk, etc., etc. And then I say, okay, maybe gender identity will be the claim that a person's subjective, their subjective sense of being a man or woman or something else constitutes or determines their sex or gender.
Yep. That's pretty great. And I would say, and just to add a little piece of that, what you were talking about dress and social roles and all of that, gender roles and things like that, that's more of a gender expression, right? That's how people express their gender. And the gender identity is exactly what you said. It's the claim, it's who they are.
Okay,
when you ask them.
Good. Okay. So because I like a clarification. So obviously I'm calling up. I already know we disagree, but I like to clarify where the disagreements are, rather than forcing someone to agree with me.
It's helpful.
Okay, so
it is very helpful.
Okay, good. Yeah. So now, since I think we already got we have an agreement on sex, agreement on gender roles, then gender identity. Okay, you kind of agree with the definition. Now, so of course, we already acknowledge that gender roles that they do have a social dimension for, like masculine clothing or feminine clothing, like you already said.
Yeah. Now, and that's your gender expression. yes.
Yeah. So
because there are, and just wait 1 second. So for example, a person who says they are a woman but dresses very masculine, they would be considered, maybe in America we call it butch, right? And there's also men who are expressed very feminine, right? And that includes dress as well as roles and all of the things as well, but they still consider themselves men, right? So they're feminine men. Exactly, or tomboys, exactly. So that I just wanted to make that clear, is like gender identity doesn't always associate with gender expression either. Sometimes those can be different from each other as well.
Oh, okay. Now, the argument could be like, but now if gender means the social custom, like, and the roles that are associated with the sexes, then gender would have it has a socially constructed component. Like if gender like is used to determine whether someone is a man or a woman, like independently of their biological sex, then I don't see how it can simply be like a social construct, because man and woman, like we already alluded to earlier, refer to like a real kind of human being that is grounded in their nature, right?
Yes, but again, if we have to kind of pull the language apart a little bit, right? Because language is descriptive, right? And so there are people who use man and women that they flatten sex and gender to be the same. And when that happens, people are like, you're a man if you have a penis, right? But they mean sex, they mean male, but they say man because that's how they were brought up to believe the language is supposed to be. But over time, language gets more descriptive, so we're able to better describe the human experience. Because like you said at the beginning of this call, right, you were like, trans people are natural, right? People exist. It's something that is real. Like, Jack and I, who are trans people, are on this call. We exist. We're real. We're in society. We exist as trans people. So there has to be better words to describe our lived experience, and making man and male the same doesn't make sense, because it doesn't address the descriptive depth of who we are as people. So the same with gender, is there's gender identity and gender expression. Even the word gender needs to be split up a little bit.
And I would just also jump in to say that when we're talking about, people who are like, oh, well, penis means man, and people who are making that conflation, they're able to do that largely because trans people are outliers. We are a minority of the population, and so oftentimes that conflation can be relatively unchallenged, even though it is not a definition that makes sense universally, right? It is specifically a generalization that is not always the case. Um, so what we're talking about when we're talking
Yeah,
about like gender and gender identity, we're getting more specific, specifically so that we can talk about transgender people as an outlier to what a lot of people are brought up to think about, the association between sex and gender to be.
yeah, I do agree. But like I already said earlier, I think there's a distinction. Like a male will be, I wouldn't say, okay, penis, therefore male, or vagina, therefore female. I will
Yes,
be,
we
because I
agree.
think it's not just a particular organ. For like, I will define male. I will define male as like a human organism, that is organized around the production of the small gametes. Okay.
For the most part.
And
For the most part.
a female is a human organism that's organized around the production of ova, or the large gametes, or
For the most part,
or
yes.
infertile. Yeah, but the definition are not based on their reproductive. They are not like about whether the individual is currently fertile. It's simply, this is the kind, this is the order, the way they are ordered in their nature.
But that's sex.
So it doesn't
And we
mean
agree.
that they have to right now be fertile.
Yeah, we agree
Okay.
with the sex definition. Like we understand that people have sex when they're born. It's part of the human experience.
Good. In such a way that, okay, now seeing a penis can just be a signaler. It's not like, okay, penis, therefore male. But it can just be a sign, okay, maybe this
It could be
organism
a
is
sign.
organized around the
Exactly.
production
Exactly.
of monogamy.
Right.
Right. Okay, now since
It could be a clue, but that clue isn't always true for the human being. Just because 98% of people born with penises grow up and be men does not mean that that 2% of the people who grow up and be women aren't women.
Right. Okay, so since we've now have this basis, now on top of it, we can now define, let's say, a man. From my point of view, I would say, okay, a man would now be an adult human male, and a woman would be like an adult human female. Like,
no, because it excludes
if you want
the
to break
2%.
it down further, you say, okay, a boy will be like a male human who has not reached adulthood, blah blah blah. Likewise, if
But
a
no,
girl. So now, because the distinction is very important.
hold on 1 second. Val, hold on 1 second. I can't accept the claim of a woman as an adult human female because of the fact there are 2% of people that are not some of them are adult human males but are women. You see the difference? So there's 2% of the population that do not fall within that category, so your definition is flawed.
Yeah, okay. I think I missed it to address this point previously. So I'm not denying that the experience is real, that the experience can be real, and even honestly, they feel it honestly is like genuine. But I think, if you don't mind, that you're kind of moving from a statement about, my subjective experience to a statement about what I objectively am, like if I'm a trans person. I don't think they are the same thing, from a statement about my experience, my subjective experience as a trans person, to now a statement about what, something that is objective. So I don't think they are the same. Like, if I sincerely feel that I'm something, does that feeling itself determine what I am?
I mean, it determines what your identity is. Yeah.
Yeah. How can I,
like, you are the only one who can determine your identity to us. Are you a man?
Yeah. I would say I'm a man. Yeah.
Yeah, is that because you've come to that conclusion based upon how you are organized as an organism, or is it because, like, you simply believe yourself to be a man and you identify with what it means to be a man in your society?
Yeah, I think it's the former. I think it's based on top of the male. So it's like I'm an adult human male.
Okay.
So I already give definition of male, which I did.
So I'll ask you very simply then, do you believe trans women are women?
No, unless we are having a different definition. If it's the definition I go by, no, I wouldn't, because I think we disagree.
But
you
if
disagree.
but Val,
one of you disagree with the definition I just gave.
Yeah, so Val, so my question is, if you, since we went over definitions originally, so if you go with our definition, a trans woman is a woman, right?
Yeah, but I don't think we've nailed just one part of it down. Okay, there's the socially constructed aspect, then there's the subjective aspect.
No, Val, I'm asking you a direct question. I'm just asking you a direct question. I'm not trying to trick you. If you use our definition, just for the sake of argument, you would say that a trans woman is a woman, right?
Yeah, but I'm not really understanding your definition. I accepted that this is your definition, but we've not finally nailed it down.
Okay, so my definition,
then I can say
yeah. Well, my definition is very simple, that gender, which is the woman in this conversation, I'm using woman as the word for placeholder for gender, is separate from sex. That's very simple, right? Like sex and gender are not the same. So therefore, a person who is born male can be a woman. So that means, and based on who they are, right? Like I am a trans woman, so in my definition, because sex and gender are different, I can be a woman because I am a trans woman, even though I was born male. That's simply what my definition is.
Yeah, but notice you didn't really define woman, being a woman. Like we know that feelings, can tell us something about our psychological experience, right?
It's not necessarily about me defining women. It's not about me defining woman, right? It's about having the conversation of why my understanding of woman is different from your understanding, because your definition of woman requires the word female, which is sex.
Yes.
So that's what makes my definition different from yours. Your definition requires sex. My definition requires that sex and gender are different.
No. Of course, the distinction, I get where you're coming from, but just like my definition requires female, yours requires what? What would you assume? As mine
requires gender identity.
But identity is still that subjective thing.
It's not subjective.
No, it's not subjective, because you know what your identity is, right, Val?
What is it?
You know what your identity is, right?
I'm a man.
Exactly.
Yeah, do we objectively know that to be true?
I do. I know.
No, but do we know that to be true?
Well, that's what we are trying to find out, because of course you guys are the best to make
Val, if we go by your definition, we can't know that that's objectively true.
Of course you can know if you adopt my definition. Of course you can know.
No, but if we adopt your definition, we right now in this conversation, we don't have access to what your biology is. We don't know what's in your pants. We don't know what your DNA is. We don't know what your gametes are. We don't know any of that. All we have right now in this conversation, when we interact with you, is your professed identity, your professed gender identity as a man, right? So are you saying we should not believe you because you are putting forward a subjective statement?
I think there's obviously there's such a thing as dishonesty or lie. So yeah.
So should we assume you're lying, Val?
Maybe you just subjectively
Val, should we assume that you're lying?
So, like I said, subjectively, you could say, okay, I think he's being good faith, therefore let's take his word for it. But there's still a basis for say, okay, doubt. Okay, maybe he's probably not male. He's probably not a man.
You could do that. You could do that about anything. Like, Val, what's your favorite ice cream flavor? What's your favorite ice cream flavor?
Vanilla.
Okay, how can I prove that?
No, you cannot put it subject. It's something subjective.
No, it's objective to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So therefore, I can only take your word for it because your identity is a vanilla lover.
Yeah, but the
only way I know that though is by asking you.
Yes.
So
Yes.
so
Of course.
therefore your objective reality that vanilla is your favorite ice cream is my objective reality of who you are. Because why would
Okay.
I question that?
Okay. So you think two feelings are the same way I feel about vanilla. That's the same way you feel about your identity.
Not necessarily. What I'm talking about is the understanding of what you're trying to say about objective versus subjective, right? My objective
Uh-huh.
reality is that I am a woman. That is the reality of who I am, and that's it. Nobody can prove otherwise because it's my
Yeah, but
gender
okay.
identity.
Yeah, but again, like I'm waiting for maybe see how you will now. Of course, I will grant you, but I don't think you've given me like your own definition of woman. Like again, our feelings like a subjective sentiment. It doesn't tell us anything about our psychology. Sorry, it doesn't tell us
Val,
anything about our nature, our
I
true nature.
understand, but are
It's just about our psychological experience, right?
are definitions descriptive or prescriptive?
Oh, I think they are descriptive. They can also be
Exactly.
prescriptive, but when it comes to
They're
our
not
nature,
they're
our
not they're not
identity, I think
prescriptive.
it's
They're not prescriptive.
descriptive.
When is a definition ever prescriptive?
Oh, when we make up words.
That's a description. A word is a description.
No. I mean, when we are
Right?
making it up, like when we're just right now, when we are making it up, it will be prescriptive. Then,
But
after when we are done making it
they're
up, it
not
can now be descriptive.
No, they're not prescriptive. The words are words when we define things, it's descriptive. So
It's to
we
serve
are
a purpose.
yeah, we are describing what something is, not something
Okay,
it
but
has to be because I said this is the way it's supposed to be. Right? Because that would
no,
be a
I agree
really
as a
weird
part.
world. If there was like a magic dictionary and
Mm-hmm.
every definition in that dictionary was a perfect prescriptive thing that existed, like whatever was written in this dictionary is exactly the way the world would show up, there is no such book, right? Because
Yeah, I mean that's beside
how
point.
would you
Yeah,
prescribe what a chair is using a
no, I mean
definition?
as it pertains to this discussion, I think every definition is descriptive, so I have no
It
problem
is.
saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, of
So
course. So, but okay, but the point I was.
my descriptive
Uh-huh.
definition of a woman is based
Mm-hmm.
around gender identity, which at its root means that gender and sex are different, right? So that's where I start there to help you to explain the difference between you and my definition. So that's why I say that there. But gender identity or the gender of a person is based on their internal framework of what they believe woman is in the general schema of how society makes that so. So therefore, for me personally, to describe my own personal lived experience, I think of my mother, I think of my ancestors, I think of my grandparents, I think about women in history that I look up to and think about. I think about what the current fashion and all the little things that exist about what womanhood is in the world that I can see in front of me and who I've experienced and studied for me to understand my gender identity as woman, right? Because everybody's identity of who they are is not subjective, but it is to who they are. They decide who they are. That's what it's about. Like, so your idea of a man, Val, is different from an idea of a man in a different part of the world. So the idea is like all of those things in the general schema of society is what helps somebody come up with the understanding of what their gender identity is, because the gender identity is not something that is just placed on them. It's something that they come to believe about themselves. It's a discovery about themselves. It's innate.
Okay,
It's
so
who they are.
if it's like you said, what they believe womanhood is, which is subjective, is about
Sure,
a psychological experience, but it doesn't tell us again about what our nature is because it has to be
it
rooted in
does.
since you said it's
It does.
descriptive, it has to be describing something, and you say
It
it's describing
is.
an identity, and that
It's
identity
describing
has to also
identity.
to be rooted. Now, is it
Yeah,
rooted in the
it's
psychological experience
rooted in
or is
the
it rooted
identity
in
of
objective
woman.
nature?
It is objectively the rooted in who a
Oh,
woman is. That's what
also,
it is.
I do want to put out there that when we talk about things being socially constructed, that doesn't mean that they don't exist. right? Like the social construct of man and woman exist. It's when we're identifying our gender as man or woman, like we are making an appeal to this social construct that by virtue of socializing with other human beings in our society, we develop an awareness of. And I just also want to throw in there that there are other societies out there, notably India has the largest population on the planet, and they have a legally recognized third gender that it does not cleanly map onto the sexual dimorphism of our species. Like they are not, it's not a one-to-one parallel between sex and gender. And that's kind of why I was trying to talk about earlier how transgender people are a minority. And so like when we are talking about this association, like, oh, well, people who have penises are men, people who have vaginas are women, but that's not always true. And when we look into why that's not always true, you start to find this distinction between sex and gender, and you start to see that there are, in fact, multiple different ways that gender can be configured and the understanding of gender can exist in different societies. And just because it's socially constructed does not mean that it is fake or not real.
No, I do agree with that. But I think we already agree, and I concede that, of course, there's the socially constructed aspect of it. But the other part is what we're trying to narrow down. Okay, maybe I think I find a way to, narrow it down. So let's say, I think if you say that, if I asked you what makes someone a woman, and you said, okay, someone who identifies as a woman, and then I say, okay, then you are defining a woman in terms of the very thing you are trying to prove. So you are saying that a woman is something that pardon me, someone who has the identity of a woman. Okay, but the question now is, what makes that identity specifically a woman rather than, simply a subjective feeling? So I know you already said it's based on, what they believe womanhood is.
It's not a feeling.
Regarding society. If I take you out of the American society and put you in let's say Zimbabwe society or Saudi Arabia society or any society, just hypothetically, that you are the only person who has this, now it has to be subjective because the society has a different construction. Would you still identify as a trans the way you do?
Yes.
Okay, so it's really not socially constructed.
It is socially constructed because I would be living in that society. I will do what the women in society do.
How about we try a different tack on this one, Val?
Society, you will not be the thing you think you are, right?
Val, if you woke up tomorrow and you had the gametes to produce ova, would you start identifying as a woman? Would you go to your
if you woke up at the female body
and your body was organized? That this is how you defined sex earlier. You're organized to produce ova. Would you start
adult human female?
Would you start going around? Would you go to your family and say, "I'm a woman now, everybody"? Would you go to your work and tell them they have to start using she/her pronouns? Would you go and get your license changed to reflect that you now can produce ova?
Yes, of course, because like you already alluded to,
would you really? You'd start wearing dresses?
Yes, of course.
You'd start.
Principle.
In principle.
I could be like a tomboy. I could dress the same way, but it doesn't really take away the fact that I'm organized around the production of large gametes.
Val, is the only reason you identify as a man because of principle?
Yes, because I'm organized, naturally, ontologically, I'm organized around the production of the large gametes. So
Val, do you
I think we produced an egg right here.
I have a question, Val. I have a question.
Do you believe and the reproductive anatomy is oriented towards that function?
I understand what you're saying. Do you believe that gender exists? Do you believe that there is such thing as gender then?
Yes, of course.
Then what is that?
But I think it's based on the sex. As I already said, after defining
Okay,
male, I said that the man therefore
so
is an adult
therefore,
human
what am
male.
I? What like so why am I a because it doesn't make sense because if you believe gender exists, but you also
Mm-hmm.
believe that gender is based on the sex of the person, then
Yes.
why why even have the word gender at all?
Yeah, because it's something like you have to grant the feelings, that people do have, can say something about their psychological experience, even though they don't like automatically say anything about their nature. You can go,
But
okay,
what
yeah,
is it?
these
What does a
people will live in the
psychological
society.
experience have to do with somebody's penis?
Also, how is a psychological
So they
experience
have
that someone's
whether you call it a
professing,
congruent
Val, how is a
or
psychological
dysmorphia, yeah.
experience that someone is expressing to you not reflective of their nature?
No, I mean, like people do have a congruence or dysmorphia, things like that. But I think it's actually a more fundamental problem we are dealing with here.
But
Like,
but
remember
Val,
earlier, I already asked you whether you believe in nominalism, and you said yes, or is it voluntarism? Like, I think that's a more philosophical disagreement. Like, we are working from the assumption that our concept, that corresponds to real things in reality, which is, from my point, is realism. Now,
but this
nominalism will be like
is
a opposite.
Wait,
The categories
question.
as such as a man and a woman are
I need
fundamentally
to
just names or
interrupt. I'm
labels.
sorry.
hey
Like,
Val, hold on.
I do want
Yeah,
to
sorry.
know.
Yeah.
I do want to know, like, if gender is just reflective of like someone's internal like psychological condition, but it's not reflective of their nature. Um, why do we talk about men's clothes and women's clothes?
No. I'm using your own definition of gender. I'm saying gender can be defined in two ways. The way I define it, building it on or defining it on top of on the sex, okay, an adult human male or adult human female, or the way you do, which is there's a socially constructed aspect of it, and the psychological, the subjective aspect of
Yeah,
it.
but
Now,
when we're talking
if
about
that's what
when
gender really
Val,
is,
but when
then
we're
of course you'll
talking
be correct. But
about
I don't think
men's
that's what
clothes,
gender is.
Val, when we're
Val,
talking
hold
about
on.
men's clothes versus women's clothes, we're
Mm-hmm.
not talking about
That would be the gender
adult
roles, not
human
gender identity.
female, adult human males. We're talking about clothes. Clothes don't have
Yeah,
biology.
yeah, but we already clarified on this earlier when we made a distinction between gender roles and gender identity. So we agree on that. The identity is what we're
Yeah,
trying to
so
figure
but
out now.
I guess what I the confusion that I'm running into is that you seem to be insisting on like a medicalist understanding of what sex and gender are, where you conflate the two largely. And where you're like, well, yes, of course I would identify my gender as a woman if you woke up tomorrow and the only thing that was different about you was that your body had the capacity to produce ova. And I guess from that perspective, to me, it seems weird that you then navigate a world where people gender things like clothes and ships and like all kinds of inanimate objects that aren't in fact related to biology at all. And
Yeah, but remember,
to me,
go
like
ahead.
it seems like in your point of view, you would simply reject that because it's not related to biology, right? Like
Yeah, but
you would be like ships
remember.
aren't women. Thomas the Tank
Yeah,
Engine isn't a boy. He's a train. But like what so I guess like for me when I start looking at the world through your definition, it stops making sense. And when I look through the world via, sex and gender are two different categories. And if somebody tells you that they're a man, like operating under that is like the best course because, like, hey, a man is somebody who identifies with a man in that their given society. And that makes suddenly everything make a lot more sense.
Yeah. And Val, we're
Okay,
not,
okay.
and
Let's
I just want to say, this one thing because we will have to move on. We've
Yeah.
been on for a minute. I'm so
okay.
sorry. I would be happy to have you
But
call
you can
again.
call back. Yeah.
You can call back next week. I'll be on next week as well. So my whole thing is 2% of the world population is the population of Russia. Right? Like that's how many people in the world is 2% because it's a lot of people, right? That's not a small number of human beings. And so there are a lot millions of people across the world that are trans and live their lives as the gender of what they are. That's just who they are. And wouldn't it be a better world to just let people be instead of trying to prescribe them who they are?
Well, I think
Like
in some scenarios, yes,
what's
but
the
I don't think
good?
it's
What's the
always the case.
good
Like
in calling me
sometimes,
a man? What's the good? What benefit does Val in the UK get by calling me a man?
well, it depends if you're asking in context of a personal, interpersonal relationship or at the societal level. So
On a
both have
societal
different
level.
levels
On
of
a societal
implication.
level. I don't care about the personal relationship. Like what benefit is it
Okay.
for you, Val, if you waved a magic wand and your definition was the one that was accepted across the world and people like
Uh-huh.
me and Jack are now called men, what is the
Uh-huh.
benefit that you get for ruining our lives?
Okay, for example, it's not even about benefit or not benefit. Like I'm a Catholic. So okay, let's say you identify as a man. Would you say please ordain me to become a priest? Of course you will, if you felt called to become a priest. You see the implication, right?
But no, but no. What
I don't want to be a priest.
you missed the point. You missed the point, Val. I said, what benefit is it for you to if we waved a magic wand and we made your definition prescriptive, so therefore all trans people are now forced to live the gender that they were assigned at sex at birth? Because you flatten both of them as the same. What's the benefit of
Okay. So I
making
want to.
2 million people?
Yeah.
What's the benefit of making the population of Russia, 2% of the world, unhappy? What's the benefit? Why is that a good
Okay,
thing?
the benefit. I think the benefit will be ordered, a more ordered society, less chaos when it comes to
What?
defining things.
What
And
what
yeah.
is trans people doing that's making what are trans people doing right now that's creating chaos in your life?
I'm not. I can. You can fact check me on this, but I don't really have the number of lawsuits in the courts right now, just based on this issue alone. You think that's order?
Well,
You
I
think
mean,
that's
there's
harmony?
lawsuits. So there's lawsuits for people that want to not be abused in the workplace. There's lawsuits for people who chop down their neighbor's tree. Like lawsuits is not very. There's a very silly reason, right? Because any lawsuits
No.
exist for a good reason, right? When people are abused, when people are
Yep.
harassed, when people get
Right.
money robbed from them, when they get hit by a
Right.
car, or they like sexually assaulted. Like lawsuits is kind of a silly reason to say. So because lawsuits exist, there's chaos.
Are you currently
No, I mean
being sued for someone?
I mean, you would agree with me that
Val,
lawsuit is a sign that something is going wrong, right? If two parties
is
are
this
going to the court,
affecting
it's a sign that
you?
there's something wrong, right?
Is
But
this
Val,
affecting you in any way?
It's a sign of conflict. At least you would agree with me that it's a sign that there is a
but
conflict.
Val, you got to be reasonable here. The reason that lawsuits exist is not the trans community's fault.
Yeah, they pre-exist
No,
a lot of the trans discourse in the modern era.
Like
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
workplace abuse, assault,
That is not
bullying,
what I'm
all of
saying.
that
That is not my
existed.
argument.
But your
No, that is
Then why
not
did
what
you
I'm
make
saying.
it?
That is not what I'm
But
saying.
you said that that's
No,
what
that is not what I'm
chaos is
saying.
created. You said chaos,
No, I'm
and you
saying
said
the
lawsuits is chaos.
Okay, the existence of lawsuits, whenever you have lawsuits, is a sign that there is a kind of a conflict already going on. Whether it's maybe
So if you get rid of lawsuits,
you take me to court.
wait, Val. If you get rid of lawsuits, does that mean there's no more chaos? If we just stop having lawsuits?
No, lawsuit is actually a good way to resolve chaos.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So
Yes,
why
but I'm
is
saying that lawsuit
the
itself,
reason? So you see how you just contradicted yourself?
I have a question.
Lawsuits create less chaos. Why would it be more because of lawsuits?
Would you agree? Would you agree that medicine is a signpost, is a symbol that something is that some people are not healthy? Even though medicine heals people, right?
No, that's not true. A sick person can get sick and be completely healthy. Like there were like millions of people who died across the world because of COVID because they were healthy.
At the same time?
People can get people can be completely healthy and then get a virus and die. Yes, that happens all the time.
If they get virus, it means that they are unhealthy, right?
They're unhealthy when they get the virus, but that doesn't mean they were unhealthy before they got the virus.
People get medicine and treatment to get better.
Yeah.
And improve their lives.
Right. But the fact that we have to invent all those medicine is a sign that, okay, there's such a thing as unhealthy people, like, sickness.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so medicine is a signpost, is like a symbol that, oh, there is such a thing as sickness. So lawsuit is a symbol that there is such a thing as chaos or conflict.
But you wouldn't get rid of medicine.
But it doesn't have to be about trying. So it can be anything.
Val, when you're talking about lawsuits, who's the one getting discriminated against in those lawsuits that you're referencing?
Yeah, but I'm not even
can you answer that question?
But the fact that the lawsuit exists,
who is being discriminated against in those lawsuits?
Okay, are you now? Okay, agree with me first that the existence of a lawsuit is a sign that something has gone wrong.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Who's being discriminated against in that lawsuit? Who's being discriminated against in these lawsuits?
We have to let the court figure out. It depends. Okay, let's say, for example, you're a trans person and someone, because discriminated against you, he doesn't want to give you a job, or you're already doing the job and you're fired, even though you are doing the job well. That's the problem. And you should be, the court should say, hey,
so
you should
what
win.
you seem to be
describing.
What
is the other way?
But Val,
let's say I'm a Catholic priest.
Val, wait. I need to say this. I need to say this.
Hold on. Val, I'm going to mute you for a second. I'm muting you, Val. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Val, when we're talking about these lawsuits, and the example you're providing is people discriminating against trans people, like the problem there isn't trans people existing, it's the discrimination against trans people. And that discrimination would also continue to exist, even, and maybe even especially, if you insisted on your definition and calling us and treating us as men in society. You see that discrimination would be worse, not better. So your proposed solution makes things more chaotic and worse, just worse and more chaotic for trans people, maybe more convenient for people like yourself, but like, you understand this is not a compelling argument for your position, and in fact kind of makes your position seem, dare I say, monstrous.
Yeah. All right, Val.
Yeah, I'll let you have the floor.
I'm gonna unmute you, but we do have to move on before we have to close out the show. So I'm gonna unmute you now. You're unmuted.
So what do you think is my position? What do you think is my position?
I mean, your position, as previously stated, is that the existence of trans people causes more chaos for society, and thus would be rectified by simply calling Josie and I men.
No, it's not the existence of trans people that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the usage of words, the definition. That is the problem, not the existence.
You're saying that acknowledging our existence it causes chaos. Okay? You're saying the acknowledgement of us but you're saying that acknowledging our existence causes chaos, and we should cut that out. Which
so
seems...
how am I talking about acknowledgement of existence when I already said that trans people have always existed? It's not about trans people existing.
Yes, they have always existed, but your position is that the solution to all of the chaos is to call Josie and I men, which would just, by the
Yes.
way, eliminate the acknowledgement of trans people existing.
Yeah.
No, not at all, not at all. I don't think you're getting the distinction. Maybe we'll call it a day next time. I'll call on.
Call next
please
week.
do.
Call next week. All right, Val.
Yeah,
Well,
no problem,
so sorry,
no
we do have to move on.
We've already clarified our position. Thanks for having me, by the way, Jack.
All right,
appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure.
I come across your channel on YouTube.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoy it. All right, bye, Val. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. We are going to be running low on time, but Jack, I'll let you start this call. I'm going to go get a glass of water.
Okay.
So we're going to go ahead and go with your Jack from New Zealand wants to talk about Thomas the Tank Engine analogy doesn't work, and I will leave it to Jack while I get a glass of water. You're live on the line. Thanks, Jack.
Hello, Jack. How you doing?
Oh, now I'm live, right?
There we go. Yeah.
Oh, hey. Sorry. I had to wait to see. My bad. Hey, how's it going?
No worries. It's going all right.
So, before we start, I just want to make a quick comment because I was listening to Val's conversation right at the end there, and I actually think I know what he was trying to get at the end then, but I just think he was doing a really bad job of explaining his position. But I don't want to actually talk about that right now.
Okay.
But maybe I could call back another time. But also, I think that it's a really good segue into what I want to talk about, what you were previously talking about, what Val was talking about, because that's exactly what led into the analogy in our previous conversation. And Val, I think, did it perfectly for me already in laying out the exact same definition of like what a man and a woman is as what I consider it to be.
Yeah.
It's based on biology. Basically, an adult human male or an adult human female would be man and woman equivalently. And you said it like an example, like if he woke up tomorrow with female gametes, would he identify as a woman? And like I think the exact same thing is what he said. So let's say like there was this some fairy tale situation where I was put a magic spell on or had a curse or whatever, and I woke up in a female body. Or it might be like a Freaky Friday situation where, you know, there's like a body swap. And like in that situation, because I am biologically male, if I woke up and I was in a female's body, would I identify as a woman, or would I start saying that I was a woman in that situation? And same as Val, like, yes, I would, because that is what a woman is to me. It is based on biology. I probably won't express myself as the typical woman would. I'd probably still be me on the inside. I'd probably still feel the same way. I'd still be attracted to women. Well, you know,
but you would internally be like, I am a woman now.
Yeah, because the defining factors of what a woman is to me is biology, and so yeah, I'll probably still express myself in like a masculine way, but I would still
like a bit of a clarifying question here. Just might seem a bit facetious, I guess, but you brought up the movie Freaky Friday. In that movie, you know, Jamie Lee Curtis.
Bad example.
But
it's like a woman to a woman. Yeah, I know.
But it's a woman to a woman, but also
probably a better
Lindsay Lohan's
of.
character didn't start identifying as a 30-plus-year-old woman, right? Even though biologically that's what she was after the Freaky Friday situation happened.
Yeah, but I think in that situation it was more her trying to like say like, look, I am a young person stuck in somebody else's body. She was trying to say like, I haven't actually existed for 30 years. I've only existed for 15 or however old she was in the movie.
Yeah, but wouldn't that be the same? You've never existed before as a woman?
Yeah, but until that moment where someone casts like a magical spell on me, then I would have from that moment. So
yeah, but then so would Lindsay Lohan's character have been a 30-year-old woman after that magical spell happened? I know this seems a little pedantic, I guess, but like,
yeah,
but I guess the point I'm trying to get at is the same point you're landing on, which is that your body would be very different after a Freaky Friday situation, but you would still be you on the inside. You wouldn't be identifying your inner existence as that of a woman now.
What exactly do you mean by as that of a woman? Because when you say the word woman to me, that means biologically female. I don't. Do you mean
I mean
as that of someone who is?
I mean, when you think of what it means to be a man versus what it means to be a woman in society, like you can identify who a man is in society when you walk down the street. You can identify who a woman is when you walk down the street with like a fairly reasonable success rate, right?
Yeah, with I'd
And
say
it's not
more
because you're
than
intimate with their
an extremely high
biology.
degree of success.
Yeah, but it's not
No,
because you're
that's
intimate
actually
with their
I do think
biology.
no. But okay. So, do you mind if I use you an example for this?
Sure.
I promise I'm not going to be rude. So when I look at you, I see a woman, right? And what I mean by that is I don't mean because you've got long hair and because you're wearing women's clothing. What I mean is you appear to be female,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't know what you've got in your pants. I don't know if you are absolutely female or not. But what I'm saying is just by looking at you, you appear to be female. And this is something that we can do to a very high degree of accuracy. Because when we were babies, this is something that we learn how. It's one of the first things we learn how to do is we learn how to recognize faces, and there is such a difference between like a male face and a female face, and it's to do with fat distribution and muscle composition, but underlying all of that, it's also in our bone structure. So not just our physical body, where women have wider.
But
Females have wider
you're
hips, and men
conflating,
have.
yes. Yeah, so you're saying
Yeah, sorry.
you're conflating sex
Yeah,
and
let me
gender.
try not. Let me try not to use that word. Well, yeah, but okay. For the sake of our
So
conversation, I'll try to. That was just a slip. So
I
what I'm saying
understand,
is your
but Jack,
bones.
that's what you're. Yeah, I understand bone structure and everything, and I know where you're leading to this, and it's fine. I just have a really fundamental question for you because I was still listening when I went and grabbed water. So you said that if you woke up and it was a Freaky Friday situation, you would just like live and be a woman. Is that did I get that right? I just want to ask a follow-up question on that.
No, I wouldn't live any. Well, I'd obviously make some minor alterations to my life because my body is now physically different. But I wouldn't express myself or live
So
any
you'd still call
differently
yourself a
as
man?
do I
You would
just.
still you would
No,
still call
no, I
yourself a
wouldn't.
man? Okay. So do
No.
you believe that gender exists?
You talking about the social construct?
No, I'm talking about gender identity, the person, like a person's internal sense of gender identity. Do you believe that that exists?
So I just need some clarification because like I looked at my birth certificate the other day and gender said male. So I need
Well,
some
again,
clarification by what you mean by gender.
so
What I
I,
find I'll let you go, Josie. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
okay, no, it's fine. I'm not looking at like birth certificate. I'm talking about gender identity. Do you believe gender identity exists? Let me be more specific. That is separate from sex.
You mean how? So somebody identifying as like a man or a woman, is that you're saying?
Yes. Yes. Do you believe that exists?
Uh, no, because
Okay.
whether you're a man or a woman to me is
That's
determined
all.
by
That's all I
biology,
want to I want to know this
not
because
by
I
brain.
have a line of questioning. Okay. So if you do not believe
Okay.
gender identity exists, do you believe you personally, do you believe other people have a sense of gender identity even though you don't believe it exists?
Yes, I think people do. Yes.
Okay, but you don't particularly.
Well,
Personally,
what
you
I'm
do not
saying is
have
I
a
understand.
personal sense of gender identity. I'm just trying to clarify, Jack, because like I just trying to see if you personally do not have a gender identity, but you believe other people do. Is that what I'm getting, or do you believe you actually have a gender identity?
Well, this is why I need clarification because I think I do, but I think what I mean by that is I'm masculine. I wouldn't say man.
Well,
That's
that's your
not the word
gender
I would use to
expression.
describe it.
That's your gender expression. I'm
Right.
talking about gender identity because tomboys exist, right? We know that, Jack. So
Yeah.
do you believe that eternal sense of gender exists for you? So, and the reason I ask this is because in the Freaky Friday situation, you still say you would identify as a woman, so therefore you don't have a sense of identity that is man. Am I getting that right?
Oh, I'm not sure how to answer this. Um,
This was the same line of questioning I had,
It's
Josie,
fine. It's fine.
incidentally.
Okay, great, great.
do sorry, I just need to wrap my head around this.
You there?
Do I
Okay.
have an internal sense
Freeze.
of what a man, me being a man, is?
Yeah.
Yeah, is it you, like your gender identity? Do you have one?
No, I'm not sure if I
Okay.
do.
It's because if you were to go into a woman's body, you'd identify as a woman because you don't have an internal sense of gender identity. Is that what I'm gathering?
Well, I do have it. Yes, I do have an internal sense of identity, but my identity as a man is determined by something physical.
Okay, great.
Like,
Do you believe? Do you believe? No, well, I understand. I understand your point. So, do you believe that other people may think differently from that point of view for themselves, not you, but
I agree
for
that other
themselves?
people can. Yeah, I agree that other people can think differently. But what I'm saying is, from my perspective,
So,
they're wrong or they're mistaken.
I'm okay with your perspective. I'm okay with your perspective because it was a very personal question about Freaky Friday situation. So, could you imagine a world where there's another, let's say one of your mates, one of your friends here, they had that same situation to them? Do you think that they may have a different experience about, oh, I guess I'm a woman now? Or do you think that they would try to find every way possible to flip back to be the man that they know they are?
Yeah. I agree. I agree that there's that people would be very upset in that situation. Like, oh
But
no,
you
I'm a
wouldn't
woman
be.
now. That really bothers me. No,
But
no, I
that wouldn't
probably would
bother
be.
you.
To be honest with you, I would. It
But
would
why would
bother
you
me.
be
It would bother
bothered?
me. But
Why? So do you have an internal connection to being a man then?
do I have an internal? Yes, I'd say so.
Okay, so that's an internal gender identity that you have that is man, regardless of the body that you're in.
Well, I would say that I wouldn't describe that as man. No, again, that word, I wouldn't
Well,
use that word to describe it. I
but
wouldn't,
the thing is, the gender identity, you would be distressed if you woke up in a woman's body tomorrow. Yes or no?
probably somewhat. Yeah, I would be.
Yeah.
I think
Somewhat, or
over
would you
time
just
I'd learn to
accept
live
it?
with it.
So you would just accept it.
Eventually, yeah, I'd have to. Eventually, yes.
Okay,
I'd
so
have
do you
to.
realize that
Well, I would.
some of your friends may never accept that?
Yeah, I understand it.
And do you realize that being able to accept something like that is something unique to you?
Well, being accepting of it and being happy with it are not the same thing. I don't think I'd ever be happy with it.
That
Why not?
It's yeah, why not?
Well, because up until this point, I've lived my entire life as a male,
But why are
and
you
waking up as
connected to
female,
that?
that would be.
Why are you connected to that? It has nothing to do with what your internal feelings are. It's just about your physical body. You should be able to look down
Yeah,
and
of
say,
course,
"Oh, I'm a
but
woman now. I'm a woman." So there we go. You should
it
accept it.
wouldn't.
Accepting anything different would be kind of bonkers, right? Because you would be an adult human female, which would be a woman, and to think otherwise would be weird
Correct.
for you, right?
Well, I wouldn't
So
think
you would
otherwise.
be, so you wouldn't think otherwise. You would think, "Oh my gosh, I'm a man
No,
trapped in a
no,
woman's
I wouldn't
body."
think that. I'd think
So you
no,
would just be a
no,
woman,
I'd think.
and you wouldn't be distressed.
Well, no, I would be
So
distressed, but
I guess
So
what,
do you see what I'm saying,
let's
Jack?
say,
That
yeah,
distress is the fact
I
that
get the
you
point you're
have the
trying to make. Yeah,
identity. You're that the stress is the identity of you being a man trapped in a woman's body. Because if you didn't have that sense of gender identity, you wouldn't have distress. And that's what I'm trying to tell you, that a gender identity can be mapped differently from the body that you're in. That is what makes a person trans.
yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I would
I
also
understand
point
this. I
out,
understand.
Jack, I'd also point out that there are people who exist who do not experience strong feelings of gender identity, and they're called agender people. And so, like, when you're like, well, it wouldn't matter to me either way, I mean, that puts you in in a category of agender. But if you would care, then like I guess the part that I struggle with here is that I've known a lot of men in my life, and almost all of them would care very, very much if suddenly they were trapped in the body of a woman. Um,
Oh no,
and
I would care. No, no, don't
but
get me wrong. Like the point.
wait, Jack, the point I'm trying to make here is that if you would care very, very much, it kind of seems like you are trying to talk around your gender identity. Because when I initially asked, like, if you woke up in a Freaky Friday situation and you were just a woman forever, I picked that specifically because I spent a lot of my early years imagining circumstances where I would just be in a Freaky Friday situation and be a woman forever, right?
Yeah.
And so that's not a normal cisgender thing to be thinking about. Cisgender people don't simply sit and go, yeah, if I woke up as a woman tomorrow, I'd just be, I guess I'd just tell everyone I'm a woman and go about my life the best way I could. That's not how cisgender people
So
think.
I got a question in regards to that. When you said you imagined yourself in a Freaky Friday situation, were you imagining yourself with like the long hair and the dress and the feminine and performing the female social role? Or were you actually imagining yourself as female?
I was imagining myself through whatever mechanism being able to get to where I would finally be comfortable with my body and with my position in society.
Where Jack is
And
now, by the way.
yeah,
Like,
to like give you a clearer idea, I was so distressed by my circumstances that I would imagine, and this is in middle school, getting like hit by a bus. And there would be botched reconstructive surgery. Like maybe I'd be confused for some other victim in the accident. And then I would wake up after surgery and just be like, oh, no, there was a mistake. Oh, well, I guess I'll just live to accept it, wink, wink, and then go about my life. Like
Right.
that's the kind of thinking that trans people engage in because we are
Yeah,
so
yeah,
desperate to not be in the bodies we are in.
right.
And so when
I
you
understand
say
that,
to
but
me, but wait, when you say to me, "Oh, I guess I would just learn to live in my new body," I'm seeing a parallel here, and I'm not sure if it's one you're intentionally engaging in or one if you've accidentally stumbled into. Um, but I just want to say it's something to think about. We do have to wrap up because unfortunately we're low on time for the
hold on. Can we
show.
wrap up in just a minute? Because you said something in your response there that I think is quite interesting. You
Yeah.
said you imagine there'd be like some. So when you say this thought process that you have, or these dark thoughts that you have about being hit by a bus and having reconstructive surgery,
Yeah.
it sounded like you were referring more to the physical aspects of your body changing rather than just how you behave or express yourself within society. So,
It was
correct
both.
me if I'm wrong, but it sounded like you personally were like desiring a physical change of your body, like the autonomy
It
of your body.
it was both, but the one of the big driving desires behind specifically a bus accident was that would then be a way to explain it in a way that society would maybe accept in a way without me having to come out as transgender because I knew even intuitively in middle school how society treated trans people because I had access to daytime television and I saw how trans people were treated on like Jerry Springer or the Maury Show as like sideshow attractions, and I did not want that. Um,
Yeah, okay. So
so
you
yeah.
kind of have answered my question for me in a sense. It sounds like the thing that you are wanting your identity to be tied to is not this internal gender thing that you're talking about. It sounds like you want to be female,
no.
or at least imitating
Where do
female.
you suppose this desire and identifier comes from, if not from inside me?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that
Yeah,
question.
that would be my
Exactly.
identity,
That's the
Jack. That would
gender
be my
identity part.
identity.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
we
Jack,
do we do need to
we gotta
go.
go. We only got
Call in
10 minutes to
again.
wrap the show. So,
But
All
yeah,
right.
call again. I'll be here next week. All right, talk to you later. Bye.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
see
Thank
ya.
you. Bye. I felt the concuss of
Just a
everything.
brick wall.
All right, so let's go ahead and go into super chats. $5 or more. We're gonna read through them really quick, and it looks like there is a tie between dolls get one free felony annually and
Ooh.
official state of cryptids. That's a really interesting. So I guess it's dealer's choice. So the winner of this gets to pick. Oh
Okay.
wait, no, it's still voting, still happening. Okay, never mind. So as soon as voting stops, we'll make that happen if it
Okay.
doesn't break the tie. All right, so go ahead and start.
All right, Demos Banker, thank you for the $5 super chat. I want to say thank you for everything you do as a trans male that I feel like as a group we forgot about because a lot of the is on the ladies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. Joshua Everett, $5. Thank you for keeping me sane while I'm working through lunch and dinner again. Hashtag Team Josie. Hashtag make Jack defend nonsense. I love it. And glad I'm helping with the work. I'm sorry you're working so hard today.
Snardfluck, thank you very much for the $10 super chat. Unfortunately, it is often necessary to let go of your family. In my case, eventually my mother would take me to the supermarket and my father would fix my lawnmower if I was away from my house.
Mm. Nikki, bad. Thanks for $5. Just got prescribed progesterone today. I'm so happy.
Congrats.
Hashtag Team Josie. Yay.
Thank you for the $10. Iconic Demonic. When I had bottom surgery, I had to return to my dad's house for 3 weeks of my recovery. Even though he calls me his daughter now, he is very MAGA and doesn't understand why I had to cut him off again. Oof.
Mm.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry to hear that.
Maybe I should read this one.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Thank you for the $10. 8 Grant Rants United 8. Hush, Josie. I, Riverboat Jack, am speaking. I'd like to announce that Tim Pool and I are officially engaged. We will be wed in Topeka under the full moon wearing only yarmulkes and beanies. Hashtag Team RJ.
All right.
God.
Wow. Congratulations. I didn't know this was a thing, but
Yeah, I didn't know either.
people can find love everywhere.
Even in the sewer.
Yep. Thank you for the generous $50 donation from Billy Sipes. Love the line and the host are both wonderful. I always enjoy hearing their thoughts and perspectives and I feel like I learn something new every time I listen to them. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the $5. SJL, you should do even odd in place of RPS. Reader calls out even or odd. Both throw 1 or 2 fingers, never any ties. Hashtag RBJ, have to support the redhead. I don't want to do that. That sounds really complicated.
Oh my gosh.
Oh God, I should do this one, I guess.
Are you gonna do it? Okay, go for it.
I'll do it.
Oh
Thank
my
you
gosh,
for the
what is this? What is this joke?
8 Grant Rants United 8. I, Riverboat Jack here, want to thank you, everyone, for the engagement. Congratulations by sharing my bridal party. Caitlin Bennett, Roseanne Barr, Byron Gnome, and my maid of honor, Blair White. Hashtag Team RJ. Thank you.
Is this the darkest timeline going on right now?
I guess so. The darkest dungeon.
Yeah. Oof. That's where the wedding will be. That's reception. The reception is in the darkest dungeon. Mystic Mind Analysis, £5. Thank you so much. Gender-based language is complicated because English isn't one language. It's 3 smaller languages standing on top of each other in a trench coat. Yes.
It's true. And then kind of
true.
like a little thing organism grabbing and assimilating.
Of course.
Ice Axe 852, thank you for the $5 super chat. Everyone keeps asking for my pronouns, but all my nouns are still stuck in the amateur leagues. Hashtag Team Captain Jack. Appreciate it.
You'll get there. Tubin, $5. People who want to make serious arguments against trans ideology need to stop using John Money as an example. He is a sicko. Yeah, that's why I call it out.
Sure.
Like he's so yeah, I hate it.
Thank you for the $5. Mr. Poe 9274. The gay agenda walked so the transmission could run.
Yeah, that's a good one. Thank you. Thank you for that. That made me laugh. Yes. $5 from Melatonin Ali. Subtle ways I let people know I'm safe at work is to have pride pins on my lanyard, including one with trans colors and pronouns are visible on them
That's a great idea
on
too.
visible teams. That is a good idea. Wish we thought of it.
Thank you for the $5. Isaac's852. West Coast, Best Coast. Negative vote against hashtag Team Josie. What? I
It
think,
works for me.
yeah.
I was on the West Coast for a while. I will count the point even though Lux isn't giving it to me.
I actually
So
accidentally gave you 2 points much earlier on, so I was just
oh, did
waiting for
you?
it to balance out. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Instead of
okay.
revoking your point and then giving it back, I was just waiting for this to happen.
Oh, I see how this is. The ballot rigging begins. Ali True Silver, thank you for your generous $50. Question for Josie. Given that trans people are considered a national security risk, I'm hesitant to provide any info to the government that I'm trans. Do you think I'm safe to lie to the government to mask my transness? Do you know someone who would? Hashtag Team RBJ. Do what makes you feel comfortable.
Talk to a lawyer
Yes.
is my
Yeah.
advice.
There you go. That is true. Talk to a lawyer, but that's just how the government is being very persnickety right now. We'll
Yep.
say I gotta, yeah, it's very persnickety.
Thank you for the $10, Aaliyah True Silver. Context for last question being I'm applying for government benefits I need. I also, sorry, Josie, I voted for you last time. Gotta support Riverboat Jack today. Hashtag Team
Oh,
RBJ.
it's killing me.
Oof.
I'm getting blown out. $10 from Hayden Dyke. 3, Val, a person's sex can be determined to fit objectively into a category once a category is defined. Yeah, but the category itself is subjective, defined by minds. Hashtag Team Jack. Yep,
Yup.
exactly.
Thank you for the $5. Aaliyah True Silver. Sex shouldn't be male or female, but penis, vagina, or intersex. I think calling sex male or female conflates it with gender, which is inaccurate. I think we should just have a more nuanced understanding of the sex spectrum. We
Yeah,
should
if you
understand
surgically have both, then that's not really intersex, is it? Or I don't know.
Is it? I don't know. You can be what you want if you do that. Domestic $5. I think Val is confusing what is objective versus subjective with what is deductive, necessary versus inductive probability. Hashtag Team Josie. Yeah, I think that is absolutely fair.
Yep. Oh, I lost my place. There we go. Jack needs to stop dead naming Tammy the Tank Engine. She's transgender. Hashtag Team Josie. Thank you,
Yeah,
Isaacs, for the
yeah,
$5 super chat.
yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's a $2, but I guess we'll let it slide.
Oh.
It's okay. You could say Thomas is transgender, but this.
Thank you for the $5 Canadian Hubris Inc. RBJ. A train is a consist of locomotives and carriages. Thomas is a locomotive. Hashtag Team Josie for that. I mean,
Yeah.
technically, I believe he's a tank engine.
Aliana True Silver, $5. Hot take: chaos is welcome and gets too much slander. Hashtag be chaos, do gay. Yeah, I don't know who that goes to, but I guess we'll just move on.
Yeah. Joshua Everett, thank you for the $5 super chat. I won't accept anyone using any word for Val other than I don't
Guess asshole. Asshole. It's a little
okay.
ass in a little hole.
Hashtag Team Josie.
Space Trap, $5. Just finished my first bottle of EN. Started
Nice.
timing my shots for Deary TACIS. Love that so much. Tits
Hell
out
yeah.
for HRT. Hashtag Team Josie. That makes me happy to know that happening.
Thank you for the $5, Nathan J. Arndt. I hate that I have to choose between Riverboat Jack and Josie. You are both so damn wonderful. Hashtag forever Josie.
Oh,
It's
thank you.
fair.
Much
It's
love.
fair.
Iconic demonic $5, realizing that it was not typical to have Freaky Friday scenario well thought out in my head was the egg crack moment. Never look
Yep.
back. Hashtag SBJ. Agreed.
Yep.
I was also devastated by this news.
I thought every guy was just going through life being like, I want to be a woman. And then I found out when they were talking about that, they only wanted to be a woman for like, 20
Boobies.
minutes so they could touch boobs.
That's it.
That literally. And thank you for the $5 domestic 63332. I would have no issue waking up as a woman. However, I would have an issue with the reverse scenario. Hashtag Team Josie.
Yeah.
I get you.
Yep. And 4.99 from beautiful Sniz. I have my date for my FFS September 4th. Congratulations.
Congrats.
Friend. Yay.
And thank you for the $5 Canadian. Your parents had sex. Hashtag Team Josie, the I-fied.
Yeah, I mean, it's Josie before the I. That's what I refer to myself pre-transition. So let's see. Beaker Squeakers, $10. Watching the phobes dance around very obvious answers is so infuriating. Why do I do this to myself? Because the TACIS hosts are awesome. That's why. Hashtag Team RBJ. And that is the last super chat. Thank you for Team Josie coming through at the end.
There we go.
Yeah, I thought Team Jack had me today, but the most leftist people always vote late. Just how it works. I'm sorry.
It's true. It's true. Y'all need to get in on early voting.
Because we don't trust evil Jack. We don't know if we're talking the evil Jack, the evil New Zealand Jack, or good Jack. So, splitting the vote. It's not great. All right, so the category that won was dolls get one freebie felony annually.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Just
Starting
one.
Up the clock in 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so here's my pitch. The dolls, people know what the dolls are all about, all right? They are about freedom, they are about expression, they are about healthcare for all, okay? So my proposal here is that all the dolls collectively pool their felonies and save them up year after year, because you can do that under this system, until they reach a critical mass of felonies that allow them to overhaul the entire system as they see fit, effectively creating a supermajority from this strange quirk of our new political system, allowing the dolls to reshape all of society. Okay, now the dolls, of course, would institute things like Medicare for all. They would do things like, various forms of ranked choice voting to make our system more democratic and a multi-party democracy may flourish. And of course, the dolls would also be all about making sure people are having fun. It'd be like Legally Blonde all over the place, okay? And not only that, of course, you would also have a utopia rising from the ashes of the old America where people can just exist as they want to exist without any judgment. And really, I think that this is the best use of our ability to just commit felonies. I think that obviously some people might abuse their power in some kind of the purge, but if it was only trans people, and I reject this faction of the dolls, of course, but it would be our duty to collectively pool those felonies and do something really for the good of society. Maybe we could do some felonies like feeding homeless people in places where that's, for whatever reason, inexplicably illegal now. But I do think that we can work something out here.
Yeah, I just love how many clip goals you just created. We're just advocating for felonies. Just like
Look, I mean, felonies include a lot of different things in the American judicial system, up to and including overthrowing the government. So
yeah, exactly. It's just one. We just spread one. We just do a bunch of the same amount of people, a different amount of people. That's it. Awesome. All right. Well, friends, that's the end of our show. Thank you for calling in.
Oops, it was the wrong one. It's this one. Nope, not that one. Okay, you know what? We're just gonna end this. Goodbye now.